Hello. How's it going, everyone? Just getting set up. And we are live. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Howdy. This beautiful Sunday evening for me, and maybe not Sunday for you, but maybe Monday by now. How's it going, everyone? What's up? Howdy. Howdy, folks. Yes, I was just doing some testing and looks like I'm finally up and running. So we're good to go. Wanted to talk about atheism and morality. This is what I wanted to discuss today. And I was having a discussion with some people about atheism, about morality. Different people were wondering, well, where do you get your morals from? And I wanted to get into that. Can you guys hear me okay? Sounds okay? Anyone have any issues with the sound? Sound or video? Give me a thumbs up if you can see me. Yeah, it looks like the video is working. So Sarka, you may need to check that out, why that's not working for you. I'm not sure why you're having an issue with that. But yeah, we're live. Okay, so atheism and morality. So I wanted to discuss with people, where do Muslims get their morals from, and where do atheists get their morals from? Well, first of all, atheism has nothing to do with morality per se. Atheism is simply the rejection of God. So where do we atheists get our morals from? I mean, where do we get our values from? If we don't have any belief in God, then where do we get these values from? Well, the answer is not that complicated. And I think religious people try to make it more complicated than it needs to be, because they want to make it seem like religion is solving a problem that, to be honest, I don't think we really have such a problem. So where does the morals come from? Well, first of all, if you look at some animals, we will see some basic form of morality. For example, rats. If you have multiple rats and you do an experiment, and they've done experiments like this, where you have one rat that'll get shocked every time another rat will take food. That second rat will actually reject the food if he knows his friend will get shocked. Now, why would he do that if they're just animals, right? We've also seen examples of male chimps who will give their food to another older female, even when there's no personal benefit to that male chimp. In the book The Selfish Gene, Dawkins explains how altruism has arisen naturally. So The Selfish Gene is a fantastic book that I've read, and I really enjoyed this book, so I'm just going to show you what it looks like. And I highly recommend that whoever has a chance to get this book, check out this book. It's a little bit more advanced than some of the other topics on evolution. It goes into how male and female genders came about. It goes into like the theory behind game theory, like the idea of doves and hawks, and how different animal species, they come up with an evolutionary stable strategy, either for hunting or fighting or self-defense. And it turns out that, you know, a lot of these things can be explained using mathematics. So if you look into the Selfish Gene book, he explains using mathematics and science how we ended up with a male and female, how we ended up with altruism, because altruism actually pays off for the species. So if you have a species like, let's say, chimps, where, you know, they help each other, you know, it's kind of like you scratch my back, I scratch your back, you end up with good values, right? So this is kind of where it comes from. And Yeah, that's where the idea comes from for altruism. So to add a little bit more, people often wonder, there's some controversial questions people will ask, like, for example, incest. Why would incest be, troubling or forbidden, to atheists? Atheists can just do whatever they want. Well, hold on there. Let's talk about this. Why do we find incest troubling in the first place? I mean, it's something we find abhorrent and disgusting. The reason why is because our ancestors, the ones that would have done it, they would have ended up dead, plain and simple. The reason is when you reproduce in a small group of genes, what ends up happening is you don't get the diversity of the genes, and so you end up with like genetic diseases. And when you have too much gene mixing, what would happen is, let's say you had a disease, right, that comes up, it can wipe out the entire population. So it turns out that incest is actually not a good idea, at least for humans, right? So clearly, the people that would have done it, they would have ended up extinct. And the ones that found it disgusting, disturbing, abhorrent, that didn't do it, that inclined away from incest, would end up not dying out and would survive, and they ended up being the humans that we are today. So this is how we ended up having some of these values. But the question is, should something be immoral just because evolutionary history tells us it is? No, not necessarily, right? Our evolutionary history teaches us, why we might be, but doesn't tell us what we should be necessarily, right? We have many, harmful attributes as human beings. Violence, we tend to be violent just like our primate ancestors. We tend to be greedy and selfish. We tend to be territorial. We have many harmful characteristics that are not necessarily good for the human race, right? And so we should try to not necessarily, we don't necessarily want to encourage those things, right? We want to try our best to like go towards better values, right? Better values such as empathy, such as sacrifice, such as loving and caring each other, not being racist. Right now we have these like race riots that are happening all over the world. We have white supremacists and the alt right that want to go and they want to say, we're going to take back the country. We have Britain first, and we have these groups that want to take back based on race. And we don't want to get into this tribal type of thinking, because this is bad for humanity. We want to be people that are deeper than that, not skin deep, right? And so the question is, coming back to atheism, what does atheism tell us? Does atheism tell us, we have to be good or we have to be bad, or what does it tell us? Well, if you look at what Dawkins described as natural selection and survival of the fittest, well, doesn't that mean that we should be, if it's all about survival of the fittest, then doesn't that mean that atheists is saying that we should kill all the weak people, all the sick people, and the best will survive, the strongest will survive, kind of like eugenics, which is what Hitler wanted to do. Is that what atheism says? Well, no, atheism doesn't say anything, right? That's why on top of atheism, you have to choose which way of life you want to live. Not, by the way, some religions are atheistic religions. For example, if you look at Buddhism, Buddhism doesn't necessarily talk about God, right? It's just a version of a belief where there's reincarnation, and there's, you try to act well, act as a good person, right? And actually, Buddhism has some really good values, right? And I'm going to talk about some of the values which I've actually read about in Buddhism, which I think are actually quite impressive, right? Which have to do with not hurting each other. Hold on, let me just find it here. I'm going to load it up. I'm going to put it on the screen. Hold on a second. And I talked about this in my video, which is a response to William Lane Craig, his video on the moral argument. So their argument is that morals are absolute, therefore if morality is absolute, and then God must exist, basically, right? Hold on a second. Okay. 1 second. Oh, hey Jelly. Oh, it's morning time, eh? Ha 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 ha. That's terrible. It's already morning time. Where are you located? Okay, so here's some of the values that you'll find in Buddhism. So these are the 5 precepts. I undertake the training of abstaining from killing, from taking what is not given, to avoid sexual misconduct, to abstain from false speech, and to abstain from fermented drink that causes heedlessness. So this is an example of an ancient practice that, 5 precepts that are supposed to be good values for humans, right? So no killing, no stealing, no being immoral in these attributes, right? In these values. So that's an example of one way of life that is not related, that is basically atheistic, but has some values. What I subscribe to is known as secular humanism. So secular humanism is basically the belief that humanity comes first, that we need to improve the world, we need to make the world a better place as much as possible, and we place humanity first. So killing is wrong, anything that hurts humans is wrong. So, and how do we implement that? It's actually quite tricky, not as clear and not as straightforward, but we do our best and we improve as we go along. So unlike religious scriptures that are set in stone and are stuck and rigid to specific values, with secular humanism, we actually improve as we go along, right? I'll give you an example. Certain things in religious doctrine are considered forbidden, and certain things are considered permissible. These may have a specific reason for being forbidden or not being forbidden at that specific time and place that may no longer make sense. A good example of this is slavery. If you look at the Abrahamic faiths, if you look at Christianity, and we look at Islam, both of those religious texts actually allow slavery. I mean, I can talk more about the Islamic one. Islamic doctrine allows slavery through and through. Not just allows slavery, but allows men to sleep with the female captives of war. At that time and place, slavery was something that was a part and parcel of life, and slavery was a part and parcel of life. Yet, religious doctrines didn't forbid it, right? Because it was considered like a normal thing to do, a moral thing to do. It didn't, it hurt people, it definitely hurt people, but yeah, it was considered a good practice. Now, if you look at interest, on the other hand, interest was considered terribly harmful in the Islamic doctrine, and interest had to be forbidden. Now, that's kind of funny, like interest, alcohol, and sexual promiscuity were all forbidden. But for some reason, slavery was not forbidden. It was, it was encouraged, free your slaves, give your slaves away and give in charity. But at the same time, and treat your slaves well. But at the same time, it's still allowed owning human beings, right? If this was something that humanity was able to conquer and able to cancel out, I mean, today's world, for the most part, slavery is completely eliminated. And if it continues to exist, it's in the under pockets of society, and where people are kidnapped, and nobody accepts it, right? But back then, it was part and parcel of normal day-to-day life. So this is an example of how secular morality can actually exceed religious morality. Now, Jagger Silv was asking me, he deleted his message now. He said, why do I consider, I didn't see the message. I think it said, why do I consider harming people? Oh, here we go. You posted it again. Okay. Why do I say that harming people is wrong? Where do you get this from? It's a good question. So my answer is, I decided it's wrong. It's subjective. So I acknowledge that secular humanism is a subjective choice. We don't have to choose secular humanism. We can choose plundering, slavery, murder, and killing and raping as a basis of morality, which wouldn't make much sense. No one would call that morality. They would call it immorality. But as human beings, what do we want to choose as a basis, right? Well, if we want to look at something that we can kind of discuss, we can discuss harms and benefits, right? We can discuss, does this hurt somebody? Does this benefit somebody? What are the harms and benefits? And so we have some sort of basis for discussion. If we start with this basis of harms and benefits, consequences of actions, then we can look at a world where there's not at all any consciousness. If we have no consciousness in the world, a world of rocks and trees and flowers, there'd be no morality. But because of pain and suffering and consequences, these things are very real to us. We feel pain and suffering, right? And we know that, hurting people, we instinctively know this is bad, right? So for me as an atheist, I choose secular humanism as the basis of my morality. Is it subjective? Yes, it's subjective, right? Why do we eat, say, chicken, pork, and beef, but not, say, dogs and humans? Again, it's subjective, right? We decided as humanity that this is what's best, and this is why I believe that secular humanism is the best way forward. What is the alternative? Religious morality, which considers slavery as correct, the Quran, which considers it okay to have sex with your slaves, the Quran, which allows you to beat your wife in chapter 4, verse 3, and so on and so on. The Quran, which allows you to divorce your wife by saying talak, and then waiting 30 days and saying talak, and then waiting 30 days and saying talak. Or, secular morality, where a husband and wife can go to court and on equal terms they can decide whether the marriage should be continuing, not on the just on the heat of the moment, just saying talak and it's over. So Jagger, morality is what is wrong and right. There's nothing right and wrong. Everything is as right and wrong as anything else. So I guess you're talking about nihilism, moral nihilism, where everything is worthless and nothing has value. I don't find that a good model, because clearly, if someone punched you in the face, like, you will suffer. If you had a disease, right, a chronic disease that caused you pain, why do some people that have chronic diseases want to kill themselves? Because the pain of the existence is more than the happiness of the existence. They don't want to live. So if you consider everything worthless, then I guess you won't have much to kind of add to this discussion. But me personally, I think that morality is based on what harms and benefits people, and I think that's a good way to look at it. So yeah, exactly. As Luke's Live was saying, it's all about looking within. Do you want harm to come to you? I hope the answer is that no, so don't harm others, right? Alexis says, I would like to see people from Islamic backgrounds to be treated as if they are not. Can you elaborate what you mean on that? Slavery was the backbone of the Roman Empire. To free slaves would have led to economic collapse. Same with the early Muslim empire. Possibly, but Islamic scholars and the apologists will say, but Islam encouraged freeing slaves. But Islam encouraged freeing slaves. So if Islam encouraged freeing slaves, I mean, you kind of can have your cake and eat it too. Either you're saying it's good to free slaves, or you're saying no, it's not possible. And some of the Islamic rules are quite harmful to humans. Like, I mean, on slavery especially. Yes, you treat your slave good and all that stuff, but there's other things that, like, there's hadith that say if a slave runs away, his prayer won't be accepted. The Prophet said, if you believe in hadith, let's say, right, that when you die, let's say you have 3 slaves, you can only free, you have to leave, I think you can only free one of them, and you have to keep 2 of them for your family or something, because basically you can only donate 33% of your wealth, right? And like other things, like if you have a slave that becomes pregnant, she becomes walad, and she becomes free when you die, but you can kind of cancel that or something. And a lot of the rules are really benefiting men, not benefiting the slaves, right? And like, honestly, if slavery was encouraged, why couldn't it just be eliminated? Like, why go half and half right that, right? Golden rule: do unto others. You don't want to harm people because you hope people won't harm you. Yes, exactly, Kelo, that's true. Do unto others as you want to do unto themselves, right? Alexis is saying, I personally believe Islam should be criticized, but personal attacks should be removed from those criticisms. Yeah, we should be careful not to attack individuals, and we should try to focus our attacks on the doctrine itself, right? And I don't think we should be worried about Hari Krishnan is saying, I don't think we should be worried about Islamophobia because it's one of the worst religions and it better not be practiced. Well, Muslims worry about Islamophobia because they don't want the religion to be criticized. They feel like their religion deserves not to be criticized. Yeshua coming, would you say you live up to your own standards? Would you say, do you think you could be a better person? I think anyone that thinks they can't be a better person is deluded, right? Like, how can you not be a better person? And just thinking that you can't be a better person shows how deluded you are. Do I live up to my own standards? I try my best, right? Like, I always used to wonder when I became Muslim, I was like, and when I became Sunni Muslim, what would I be like if I didn't believe in God? Would I still be a good person? Would I still do charity? Would I still do good? And turns out I am the same person. You know, my son actually told me when I left Islam, my oldest, he's like, you seem exactly the same. I'm like, yeah, I am exactly the same, right? I'm just not bound by these Islamic doctrine anymore, right? So yeah, I do think that people are naturally good or bad, and I mean you can teach people to improve themselves. You can explain to them why they should be better people. Excuse me, but at the end of the day, I think people will be good or people will be bad, right? Did I ever think of changing my name? I think it's good to keep the name Abdullah because it's part of my identity, part of my journey from what how I started in life and where I ended up, and I think it's just good to keep it, and plus people know me as Abdullah Samir, so it's good to I want to continue using that, right? um, and so yeah, and someone's asking me about something, anti-natalism, a philosophical stance that assigns a negative value to birth. I don't know, I never heard of that, so I won't be able to comment. I apologize, those of you who were asking. I mean, not those of you that was it. Dope. I have no idea. Age of Ice. Hey, Age of Ice. Alexis says the political part of Islam is the dangerous part. Yes, Islam is not just a religion. It's very much an ideology. It's very much a doctrine that has a religious portion to it and a political portion to it. That's what I believed as a Muslim. That's what I believe to this day. Islam, you cannot separate the religious. I'm talking about Sunni Orthodox Islam. So if someone is a Hadith, rejects Hadith, they're like a Quranist. That's a form of reform, you could say. I mean, I don't know what they follow, how they believe, but like a traditional Sunni Muslim, I mean, honestly, if you just have to look at the doctrine, the Hadith is so clear that Islam has both a religious and a political part. You know, the whole collection of zakat is supposed to be done at a political level. Abu Bakr said, anyone that doesn't give the zakat after the death of Muhammad, I'll fight him. Just like anyone that didn't pray, you know, I'll consider them a disbeliever. So they used to consider zakat to be obligatory, because after Prophet Muhammad died, a lot of the Arabs they reneged and they became apostate, right? And it was known as the Murtad wars, right? The Ridda wars, the wars of Ridda, of apostasy, right after he died. So it became an issue, and that's when they started to, you know, they wanted to collect the zakat for the state, right? So yes, Islam is very much a political thing, right? And so the rule of the caliph, the khalifa, all of that is part of Islam. Um, if I don't live up to my own standards, why do you call yourself a good person? I don't know if I call myself a good person. I'm not sure. I think I'm trying my best, just like everybody else. I don't know. Am I a good person? I try my best to be a good person. That being said, I actually don't believe in free will. Shocking. I've read some books, Sam Harris's book on free will, and I've studied the topic a bit. And I personally don't think that we have free will. What I mean by that is we have the illusion of free will. It's a model, you know. Yeah, I thought about raising my hand and I raised my hand and I was able to do that. Now I want to raise my other hand, right? That's free will. But the reality, and I could be wrong, you know, the science may change, but I do believe that time will tell for sure, but neuroscience seems to be inclined towards the idea that we don't have free will, that our brain is just firing neurons and helping us to make decisions. Like I said, I could be wrong. Maybe we do have free will, But from what I've read, the books I've read and what I've studied, I'm convinced even if there is free will, it's very limited. And genes influence our free will, meaning people can be inclined towards alcoholism, people can be inclined towards gambling, people can be prone to violence and brutality of a sense, anger issues. All of these things are affected by the genes. And then we look at the environment, the whole thing about leaded gasoline that used to be used in the US. That leaded gasoline used to cause people to become more violent, and they used to be more aggressive. And then when they removed it from the environment, people actually calmed down. So environment has an impact. Your upbringing has an impact. How you're raised as a child. People that grow up in abusive families tend to be abusive as well. So it's a cycle of abuse that continues from family to family. So I truly believe we don't have free will. I'm willing to reconsider. Maybe we have limited free will, but like honestly speaking, if you ask me, am I a good person? I'm just doing what my brain tells me to do, right? Like I was brought up this way and all that, right? Alexis is saying, I disagree with free will. People may have a genetic disposition, but does not determine whether obesity, for example. I think people can be also inclined towards obesity. I'll give you a good example of that. I read in a book, I don't remember which book it was, maybe Freakonomics, that children that were born within, let's say in the Great Depression, or born right after the Great Depression, the moms were obviously starving, so the body was sending signals of need, and when they grew up, a lot of these children ended up obese because while they were still in the womb, the body was feeding them this craving for food which they weren't able to get. So they learned that to survive, you have to get and eat whatever you want. And we still have this kind of tendencies to obesity and to becoming overweight because a history is that we were, scavengers, not scavengers, but like hunters and gatherers, and we love fat and we love sugar, right? These things are terrible for us in a sedentary lifestyles of sitting all day. So I do think that genes maybe they play a part of it. Not your business, says deep shit. I love these topics, right? I absolutely love these topics, and I love studying these things. And I think this is the way to go as humanity. We need to keep learning these things. Pale Moon is saying free will is an illusion. You can't tell your mind to believe 1 + 1 is 3. So that's another good point, Pale Moon, that there's no such thing as choosing to believe. That's how I would say it. When people say you don't want to be Muslim because you don't want to choose to believe, you don't want to believe in Allah. Well, how do you choose to believe? How do you choose to believe that there's like a tooth fairy or there's a Loch Ness monster? You can't choose it. If I give you evidence that there's a Loch Ness monster and I show you some photos, suddenly you might change your mind. You'll be like, oh, maybe it's real, and I trust this guy, and this guy is not, is skeptical about stuff, and he doesn't get fooled by tricks usually, and if he believes it, maybe I can believe it. But you were convinced by evidence. You can't choose to believe. If I just tell you right now, believe in a Loch Ness monster, you can't believe in a Loch Ness monster. You just can't do it. Or Bigfoot. Like if I tell you Bigfoot is behind that door, right? Do you believe me? If I open the door? Nah, of course not, right? You can't choose to believe that. You'd be like, nah, I don't believe this guy. He's lying. Okay. So, Jagger, what's your position about morality? You're saying there's no morals. Don't blame them. I don't blame people, in a sense. Let me explain. Let's say some guy comes at me with a knife. I'm gonna kill you. Does that mean I'm like, oh, it's okay, man. You come kill me. You and me, I have no free will. You have no free will. You wanna kill me. I wanna run away. It's all good. No, of course not. Even if there's no free will, we can still treat people as if they have free will because we know that people can be influenced by things, right? Like, so for example, by education, by training, we can teach people things. We can, even by punishing people. So if this guy tries to kill me, we put him in jail for 30 years. We know that many people that go to jail will be remediated and will come out better and will not want to kill anyone. Some people won't be. Some people are psychopaths. And, the serial killers, for example, their brains are screwed up. Do I blame those people? Like, there was one guy, Sam Harris mentioned in his book, that he went and he killed his wife and he killed his kids. He shot them and then he killed himself. And before he killed himself, he wrote a note. He's like, I don't understand why I'm doing this. He's like, why am I killing people? and then they did surgery on his brain, and they found out he had like a tumor pressing on his brain and affecting his decision making. So I'm not saying everybody has like big tumors pressing on the brain, like making them, influenced into doing violent acts or something. But people are doing what they think is best, and we can deal with them. I never really understood this point that if there's no free will, there's no such thing as morality. I don't think there's any day of judgment. I mean, I know there's no day of judgment. I'm completely confident there's no day of judgment. I'm confident that if there was a God, it makes no sense to punish us because of the way that he made us. I mean, he made us with these tendencies to violence. We were basically advanced primates or chimps, right? We're just like a chimp cousins, right? We act just like chimps. We enjoy music and dancing. We enjoy entertainment. We enjoy running, and of course we have higher level faculties than the chimps do. But at the end of the day, we sometimes revert to that chimp behavior, right? Like flight or fight. In some situations, you lose your moral sphere. Like if you're put on a boat with two people and only one person's gonna survive, or in a plane, only one of you has a parachute. Sometimes people will revert to that survival instinct where they'll just push the other guy out of the plane. But and some people don't. Some people will rise up from the primal instincts and will say, you know what, I'm gonna let you take the last parachute, and I'm gonna go down with the ship. Right? I'm gonna go down with the sinking Titanic. You guys go. So some people are like that, right? So I don't blame people for being the way they are. I truly don't blame anybody for being the way they are, because I feel like they are the way they are for a reason, right? I hope all you people are members of the global atheist group Atheist Republic. According to Not Your Business, everything is written, you are a robot according to the Quran. Yeah, kind of. That's another thing about Islam, right? Doesn't Islam say that, we're all predestined? We're all gonna go to hell if we're meant to go to hell. You're gonna do actions of the people of paradise until the last moment, and then you're gonna do something of the people of hell and gonna go to hell. There's people that, even the Prophet said they fight and then they die, and people thought they're gonna go to paradise, but they ended up going to hell because they were fighting to show off. The whole thing makes no sense to me. Why do people show off? Because God gave us these things, this like wanting to show off. Like, why would we be punished for that? Like, it's like giving a kid a gun and blaming the kid when he shoots another kid. Like, hello, God, you're gonna give a gun, you're gonna give us all guns, and you're gonna blame us when we shoot the guns? No, you shouldn't have shot the gun. But you made me like that. You made humans like that. It doesn't make sense. So, honestly speaking, it doesn't make sense. So anyhow, yeah, maybe. So Jamie Book Jew is saying, why is it morally better to die, aka go down with the ship? Why does the other person get to live? I'm so glad I'm studying ethics now. I'm able to actually answer these kind of questions to an ability I never was before. So the way, one way of defining, by the way, let me just show you the book that I'm actually reading right now. I actually am enjoying it, and it's actually helping me to study these topics and to understand them. So let me just share the book with you. It's a great book. Hold on one second. Let me go to my books. So I use a company called Audible, and it's not sponsored. I wish it was sponsored, but it's not sponsored. And this is the book that I'm reading, The Quest for Meaning, Values, Ethics, and the Modern Experience. It's a great courses book, and I highly recommend it. He goes into and he discusses these things in great detail. So to answer your question, why is it better to let the person go on the boat and you drown with the ship rather than you push them off, push them into the water or stab them in the back and grab the last life jacket, right? The reason why it's better is because we can all agree that allowing everyone to live according to the desires is better than not allowing people to live according to the desires. So all of us want to, live according to our own self-determinism. All of us want to make our own decisions that govern our life. So in order to respect everybody else's decision, we have to put limits. Like if you want to kill me, no, you can't do that because then you're not respecting my right to self-determinism. So there's some boundaries, right? So this is called the moral sphere. Inside the moral sphere, we try to is where the values are maintained and peace and all these things are going well. When the moral sphere is broken and we're in a situation where one person has to die, he was discussing in the book that one way to do it is you pick lots. Well, first of all, you ask if anyone will volunteer. If somebody volunteers to go down with the ship, they are acting in accordance to their needs, to their desires, and as well other people. So they're actually taking the heroic position, and they're doing what's good for everybody. They're actually sacrificing themselves for the good of the greater. Now, if that doesn't work, then the next thing you can do is pick lots, right? Everybody pick lots. If you're the unlucky one, you're the one that's gonna die. Right? Everybody else gets to survive. So these are way, and still that's fair to everybody, right? What's not fair is you kill the guy and you take his boat, right? So clearly, there's some thinking that goes into ethics and morals, right? And I think that's the important thing is we think about these things and we reason through it together, and we come up with something that makes sense, right, for all of us humans. And that's the superiority of secular humanism over religious morality. Religious morality is basically just an appeal to authority. Why is slavery okay? Oh, well, God said it's okay. Why is it okay to hit your wife? Oh, because God said it's okay. Why is it okay to have 4 wives? Because God said it's okay. Why is it okay for a man to have 4 wives plus unlimited concubines, but a woman must have 1 partner? Why can't women have multiple partners? Why can't a woman have 2 boyfriends? What's the problem with that? If a man can sleep with 2 wives, why can't a woman? Or why can't you have a relationship with 2 women and 2 men, or one man and 2 women, like 2 men and 1 woman, or whatever? Like, what is the problem? Why is it okay to have only for the man, not for the woman? That's a good question, right? Polyamory is a type of relationship which has become a relationship model that some people are experimenting and getting involved in. It's challenging and tricky and it's a lot of trouble, but it works for some people, right? They have like one lady will have a couple of boyfriends. Now tell me, why is that immoral? And why is it moral for a man to have 2 wives? I mean, it's just arbitrary. Because Muhammad said so. It doesn't add up. There's even some societies where you have like one woman will marry like multiple brothers. According to Islam, a man cannot marry 2 sisters. You can only marry 2 unrelated women. They can't be sisters. So like, where does this come from? Does this make any sense? Not really, right? So yeah, religions are written for men by men. The brain is just a piece of meat. Do you think that piece of meat is able to comprehend what's beyond the universe? In Allah I trust. I don't know if I follow what you mean. Yeah, the brain is a piece of meat that's highly sophisticated piece of meat that has sophisticated neurons firing electrical signals and bursts of electricity, and it's much more than a piece of meat. That's putting it lightly. It's the most sophisticated, advanced piece of meat that we have. Okay. So, as an apostate, Anne is asking, are you not concerned about your own life and the lives of your family? Yeah, I'm concerned. I'm in Canada. It seems relatively safe, and I try to keep my personal details as anonymous as possible. I mean, everybody knows what I look like. I've been recognized in public 3 times now, and all 3 times it was friendly people that were like, hey, I've seen your videos and I just want to say hi, and it was like, cool, but I was like, I don't want to be recognized in public, but I can't help it, because that's what I'm doing now. My family is still Muslim, at least by name, so hopefully no one will hurt them. If anyone wants to hurt me, they will make me a martyr, and my message will grow exponentially even stronger, and it'll go far and wide, and 100 other people will stand up and say, you killed Abdullah, I'm going to stand up in his place, and you're not going to kill all of us. I honestly don't think anything will happen. I'm hopeful. I mean, there's many people that have stood up and become public before me, and they've been okay, and so I hope I will not be the first person to be killed, and I don't think I will be. Like Salman Rushdie was, he got death threats, and a lot of people, but so far I'm okay, and I hope it continues to be okay. This is important enough for me that I believe I need to speak out and I need to help people that were in the same situation as me, so I'm willing to take that risk, right? Um, oh my god, getting into complicated questions. What happens if the other person wants to go down with the ship is doing it for the wrong reasons? Mental illness, what should you do? Ooh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll just say I'm not sure. Okay. Um, meat can't think. I see the brain is like a super UI. Women did have more than one husband before Islam. Yeah, that's a good point, eh? Isn't it? Ah ha ha ha, Mubin. A piece of meat that created Allah. This is a good one. Hilarious. Okay. Um, is it okay to kill? Okay, hold on. Before I go there, Kalo said a man has to always be sure that the children are actually his, the selfish gene idea. Otherwise, you're propagating another man's genes. That's interesting, and I don't think that actually applies to humans as much as other animals. Like with a lion will go and murder the entire pride of previous children when he takes over the pride. Sorry, he will kill all of the children of the previous man when he becomes a new what's the word? When he's a new leader of the pride. Whereas humans don't do that. In a discussion between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, he was saying that if humans were actually, you know, controlled by that desire to spread their genes as wide as possible, everyone would be lining up at sperm banks, right? But we don't do that, and a lot of people, stop having kids, right? Like I have 5 kids. I'm not planning to have any more kids. I'm done, right? So a lot of people actually go and have a vasectomy. A lot of people will just stop having kids. It's more than just spreading your genes now. Like our brains and our culture and our values have taken over a lot of our genetic predispositions, right? So we may have a predisposition to spread our genes, further and further. Like men would have that, and whereas women can only have one child at a time, whereas men can have multiple by impregnating multiple women. There's still some history there, some evolutionary history. Like I said, like just like people say we have a chimp brain. The same way we have this kind of animalistic desires that are still inside us, but we definitely are thinking creatures that are not limited by chimp history, right? Let's say primate history, right? Fee Crux, is it okay to kill a few civilians to win a war, or is it okay to kill 1,000 soldiers, which might really result in more civilians killing later on? So, one of the examples he brought up in the book, it's not actually a book, it's actually a quiz, The Quest for Meaning, is he brought up the example of the atomic bomb. And what he said is, I mean, honestly, buy this book, get an Audible subscription, you will learn so much. I mean, if you can actually sit down and read a book, that's great. I can't, I don't have time for that, so I actually like listening to audiobooks. And so in this book, he talks about using the minimal possible force to bring back the moral sphere. Okay? So the question is, was the decision to drop the atomic bomb and to kill hundreds of thousands of people the right idea? Well, it ended the war, which millions and millions of people were being killed, and hundreds of thousands of people were killed instead. And as well, humanity now would hopefully never do that again. I don't know. It was a difficult decision, right? I personally think it was over the top, and they didn't need to actually drop the bomb on Japan. They could have dropped it like within visible distance, maybe. Like I'm not a military strategist, and I really don't see why they needed to drop 2 bombs. Like one would have been enough, and even then, like on the town, like can't you just do it in a way that they can just see the force that you guys have, and realize like, okay, we surrender. Like you guys are gonna like destroy us, and we don't want to fight anymore. I personally have a hard time justifying killing hundreds of thousands of people like that, just obliterating them, and leaving, poison in the air and in the land for tens of years, decades. Maybe that was one of the worst decisions, but did it save lives in the end of the day? Did less people get killed because of that? I'm not sure. It's a difficult thing, right? So killing, we should always try to limit force to the minimal force needed to bring back the moral sphere. If the moral sphere is broken, you may need force to bring it back, right? Okay, I hope I answered the questions, Fee. Jeffrey, thank you for the good feedback. I haven't challenged Muhammad Hijab to a debate. If he sees this video, or if someone can ask him if he'd be interested in discussing with me, I'm easy to reach on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Well, YouTube I don't check as much, but if he emails me on my blog, if he's interested in having a discussion with me on my channel, I would love it. I mean, I somehow think he won't after what happened with Ali Dawa. But if he's happy, I honestly would love to have a discussion with people. I would love to do so, right? They will say women can't have more than one man because how would you know who the father is? Why is that the most important thing, right? Like knowing who the father is. Like, let's say you live in a culture where children belong to the group. Why is this idea of inheritance or like so important? Why is it in Islam a stepson cannot inherit, but like an adopted son cannot inherit from you, or a stepson, I guess. But as only your blood children can adopt from you, right? Can inherit from you. So it's all very arbitrary and nonsense. I mean, what difference does it make? If I have kids, one's adopted, one's not adopted, I think they should all get the same amount. The adopted child should be treated the same way as all the other children. So I don't see why it really matters who the father is. And anyways, there's ways to know. There's ways you can work that out. Even if you had one woman with multiple men, right? You could have waiting periods or whatever. Like, there's ways to work that out. That's not the most important thing in the world. Discuss the concept of free will in the Quran. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't really care about what the Quran says about free will. Okay. Do I believe in al-fitrah, an innate form of a believing God? And there's a couple more questions. First question, do I believe in fitrah? I don't know if I'd call it fitrah, but obviously we have some predispositions as humans. I personally think believing in God is a very natural thing. It's just a very easy solution to trying to understand stuff. We definitely have many biases. One of the biases is seeing patterns and seeing designs, like seeing movements in the dark. Like, it's late at night now, it's 11:41. Like, if it's really dark, you might see things, right? You might see things moving. Like, you get scared, right? Why is that? Because we evolved these mechanisms in order to survive, right? Sorry, I need some water. We evolved these mechanisms in order to survive, and these actually helped us at the time when we needed them. But nowadays, like, some of these things may not make sense anymore. So if you want to call that fitrah, I'd be like, okay, that's fitrah. Maybe it's fitrah, or maybe it's kind of natural to believe in God because we have that bias again. Many things we have biases for that helped us to survive, right? So if it has survival value, we may actually have a bias for it, even if it's false. Tribal mentality is another thing, right? Racism. Some of these things are very natural, right? I don't know. Alright. Second question. Why does Islam do this, and why does it call converts reverts? Islam wants to take Muhammad said that everybody's born a Muslim. They want us. It's just a false narrative of Islam that Islam is the best, Islam is the truth, everybody's Muslim, and then they leave Islam because of their parents. Well, no, not at all, not really, right? Who said everyone would believe in one God? Maybe they would believe in multiple gods. In fact, most of history of humanity, people have been polytheistic. They believe in multiple gods. So who's to say that people are born Muslim? Maybe they're born like polytheists, right? You know what I mean? Like people used to worship nature in the very beginning. Very early on, people would worship nature. Then they came up with multiple gods. Then they came up with one God. That's maybe the fitrah. I wouldn't say believing in Allah is a fitrah, right? So there's no evidence that Islam is the perfect state, right? Polygamy was, Kalo, another great comment. Polygamy was very common in early Islam because there were a lot of women, more women than men, because men were getting killed in warfare. Yeah, that makes sense. It probably wasn't enough women. But in today's world, on average, you have one man born to one woman. If you if you engage in polygamy, you would end up in a world where there wouldn't be enough women for everybody, and there would be civil unrest because some men would have like hey multiple women, and some men would be like no woman for me. And in fact, it's happening in China with the lack of women because they don't want to have daughters, so they kill the daughters or they abort the daughters or they don't want to have daughters. So a lot of women are being kidnapped as brides, you know, like it's just like crazy because there's not enough women, like there's just not enough girls over there. So yes, it would cause civil unrest. I think polygamy is not a good state for the world, right? How big were moral issues for me leaving Islam? Is that a circle? Zero, nothing, almost nothing. I actually left Islam, you know, because of the issues with the Quran not representing reality accurately, which couldn't be from God. I actually made excuses for all of the moral issues in Islam, slavery and all that stuff. I truly believed it's from God. So God knows best, and God is the one that will decide what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. You know, so like, you know, slavery and all that stuff, I just accepted it, that if God wants to do it, then, you know, that's what the way it's going to be. So no, morality wasn't an issue for me. Near the end, when I was kind of already left Islam, kind of like I was really doubting at that point, when I started to read about the things that Muhammad did and, you know, the revelations that he got in order to benefit himself, the marriage of Zainab, and, you know, like having a dream about Aisha and all these things, then I started to click in my mind that, hey, wait a minute, this guy is personally benefiting from these revelations. But before that, I never considered that any of this stuff was false. Like, you know, if he said that he had a dream about Aisha, that, you know, God showed him Aisha, okay, so that was God, that wasn't him, right? That's what I used to consider, right? So that's truly, I believed he was a messenger of God. He had every right to do whatever he wanted to do. God would have corrected him if he was wrong. So it wasn't an issue for me. A lot of people, it's issues for them. Oh my goodness, Yeshua, my Christian friend. I don't call myself good, but don't call myself bad. Why do you care what I call myself, good or bad? Who cares? Okay. On paper, adoption and your own kids have very little difference, but in real life, you're ready to do everything for your own child. I can justify it logically. It's 100% evolutionary. I don't agree. I don't want to mention personal details, but I know someone that has an adopted son, and he has real kid, like blood kids. He treats them the same. So I don't think everybody's like that. And in the history of humanity, sometimes adopted children, not only they got the family name, not only they got the inheritance, but sometimes they even became the next leader. Like, look at Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar. His adopted son. Now, let me just get this right. I'm going to share my link on this as well. I don't want to mix up the names. Adoption. Okay, here we go. I'm going to post a link here in the channel so everyone can see this. Okay, here's the link. Now, if you look at this page together, adoption was a common practice in antiquity. Okay, elite Roman families were adopted. It was the adopted son who mattered because he was chosen for who he was, for his characteristics, right? He was sometimes given a higher status than the natural one. The adopted son adopted all of the father's wealth, property, status, dependents, and clients. In other words, all of his power and prestige. For example, Julius Caesar and Cleopatra had a son. And guess who became the next leader? Caesar Augustus. And he was the adopted son. And his natural son, Julius's natural son, I bet you never heard of him. Okay? So here we go, right? Like, you know, even Muhammad himself, he used the same tradition, and when he adopted, he actually called Zayd, you know, Zayd ibn Muhammad, Zayd the son of Muhammad. But because of, you know, the whole issue of him wanting to marry Zainab, he decided that you could no longer call him Zayd ibn Muhammad because that was too embarrassing. Because everyone would say, oh, Muhammad married Zayd ibn Muhammad's wife. That's terrible. So no. Don't call him by the name of his adopted father. Call him by his blood father. So he became Zayd ibn Haritha. Okay, so this is kind of the issue with this is the issue why Islam has an issue with adoption. But like truly speaking, I don't think humans. I think humans, for the most part, have been adopting and loving kids just like their own kids. I don't necessarily think that, yes, there's some evolutionary reasons where you may treat your own kids better, but from my perspective, I would treat my adopted son the same as my other kids. Yeah, this conversation topic is Islamic morality versus secular morality. I don't know what exactly I know the Islamic perspective on free will is constantly debated. I mean, the Mutaliza were considered non-orthodox, heterodox. They used to believe that the Quran, they used to have a different opinion of free will, and Sunnis have a different opinion of free will. I don't really want to get into theology on free will too much. I personally would rather go by the science and what the science says, and I don't really care what the Quran says about free will. Okay, so would I visit a strict Islamic country like Saudi Arabia? Hell no. No Saudi Arabia for me. No Afghanistan. Probably no Pakistan. None of the Muslim countries. No, 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 no. I'm not taking no dumb risks like that. I am sticking it. I'm sticking in Canada and other Kafir countries. Kafir countries for the win. Okay. Okay. Alright. Softar says, I hate that Abdullah and others actually end up criticizing hadith and Islamic Sunni theology than actually Quran. I hate the clap in hadith. Quran makes more sense. Quran makes more sense? Really? Okay, so black magic makes sense? Jinns? Evil eye? All those things make more sense? Talking ants? Solomon's gonna step on us. And what else? Like, come on. Quran makes sense? Really? Really? Okay. No, Quran doesn't make sense. Yajuj and Majuj are coming, the big scary guys. That doesn't make any sense. The whole ripped off stories of Jesus about, the miracle of him speaking as a baby, ripped off as well from the Syriac infancy gospel. In fact, the whole Dhul Qarnayn story ripped off from the Syriac Alexander romance. What else? What reason does the Quran have to indicate it's the word of God? It has zero evidence. There is no reason to believe the Quran is the word of God. I'm confidently saying that because I have not seen a reason to believe the Quran is the word of God. Quran makes no sense even without the hadith. So please stop saying the Quran makes sense. It does not make sense. It is terrible. Okay. Prophet Muhammad was the first feminist. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I don't mean to be mean. One of my friends told me that I'm being too mean in the live videos. But I'm just sorry. That was actually really, really funny to me. And I'm gonna tell you that Islam had some good points, okay, for women. But it's actually terrible for women. Possibly there was some benefits for women. Possibly. But it's honestly actually terrible for women. I have this post I spent a lot of effort on. I think I spent a week writing this about how divorce in Islam is so awful. I made one full post on this. Okay? And the reason why is because I felt it was so important to talk about this. That divorce in Islam is so bad. And, women can not initiate a divorce in Islam. Only men can. Women can be divorced just on a matter of talaq, Some consider talaq, divorce to be considering binding. In the time of Muhammad, it was binding. But some scholars now, they say, no, you can't do that. You know, there's all sorts of, there's so many issues with Islamic divorce. It's just a sad, pitiful excuse of a divine system. So the other thing is, you know, if you actually look at Islam in general, there's no way you can say Islam is fair to women. It has so many issues. Like right at the beginning of the revelation, people were asking the Prophet, why is it that men are mentioned in the Quran and not women? Like over and like, you know, and then finally, you know, when they asked Muhammad, lo and behold, Allah decided to respond to the women and say, hey, guess what, guys? I think about you too. Here you go. Here's a nice verse for you guys. Ta-da! But before that, the women were actually complaining that, like, what's up with your Quran always talking to men, 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 right? And then what's up with this thing about, you know, one man or two women? Like, it seems like Muhammad had a very bad opinion of women. Okay, I don't think he was a very much of a feminist if he's saying a one man or two women. Hello, what's up with that? Like, okay, and then on top of that, allowing men to beat the wife. Hello, not very liberal or feminist there. Okay, the Quran says that too. How about this? Like cursing, you know, cursing your wife because she doesn't sleep with you. Okay, interesting. But what about the woman? Woman doesn't have any sort of cursing going on for the man if the man doesn't sleep with her, right? I'm gonna scroll down. Even it says that some people get shocked when I told them this, that even making up your Ramadan fasts, you're not allowed to make them up if your husband wants to sleep with you, have sex with you. So Aisha would actually wait until the end of the year before making up the fast because Muhammad wanted to have sex with her. Okay? People are surprised when they read that. And then about divorce, like I said, woman cannot ask for divorce. Even if she asks for divorce, it's not recommended. And then, you know, men can marry multiple women. Women cannot marry multiple men. Men can marry Christians and Jews. Women cannot. Women cannot even be married to a Muslim man. So my wife is supposed to leave me, supposedly. Men can have sex with their slaves. Honestly, it goes on and on. Like, I'm just sorry to say, Islam is terrible for women. Absolutely terrible. It is no good for anybody, especially women. Okay? So, I am so sorry to say that in a mean way, if it was mean, but that's basically what I wanted to say. Excuse me. Okay. I'm going to... Okay. So, Yeshua is saying... hold on a second. Oops, the comment disappeared. Why such a big lie? Billions of people believe for 1400 years, and it's so plain to see it's a ripoff. It's not so plain to see. It's actually very difficult to see. It's very difficult to see that Islam is false for many people because you're born into it, you're taught as a child that this is the true religion of God. And so you're born into this religion, you're taught as true from a young child before you can think critically. And so, you know, you actually have a hard time, right? And I want to post a video. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, here we go. This is a beautiful channel. I just want to share it with you guys. It's called Trees, and on this channel, there's some really good videos about religion, about doubt, punishing doubt. This guy talked about how he grew up. Oh, this is the one, Grooming Minds. You guys have to watch this video. He explains in beautiful detail. Oh, look, I'm live now. Yay, that's cool. He explains in beautiful detail how basically from a young child, people are pushed into belief and how it's hard to get over that, right? So I'm just gonna copy this link. And I'm just going to share it in the channel for everybody to have. It's called Grooming Minds by Trees. Beautiful video. Please watch it. And I think it's really difficult for people sometimes to understand that Islam is false. I've got so many people email me now. I mean, not so many people, actually. A few people. At least, let's say once a month, I get 1 or 2 people saying, thank you so much for helping me. Because of you, I was able to leave the faith. So I do think that things are changing. The Masked Arab, my own channel, Hassan Radwan, and others are actually doing a service to humanity to help others to see that, you know, all religions are false, right? Okay. Ambient noise alert? Are you guys getting some background noise? Really? Like, someone else please comment and let me know how's the background noise. I can't hear the noise, the sound while I'm actually. Um, I don't have any laundry going. Everybody's asleep. I'm up by myself. I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm not sure what you're hearing. Just let me know if there's still. Okay, there's no background noise. Okay. Alright, Slender Chunk. You're wrong. There's no background noise. Okay. Tenement trees is absolutely awesome. Are modern Muslims more dangerous than extremists, considering they trick you into thinking something else? I think they're just trying. I don't think anyone's lying. Okay, for the most part, I think people are just saying what they believe is true. If they believe Islam doesn't allow slavery, it's not justified from the texts. It's not justified. Okay, let's talk about a better example. Nowadays, people want to say that Aisha wasn't 6 when she got married, and the marriage, she wasn't 9 when the Prophet had sex with her, when the marriage was consummated. So what they want to say is she was 18. And I don't see how you can justify that from the hadith. I mean, the hadith itself says she was 6 and she was playing with dolls and, So, and she actually died, when Prophet was, like she was still alive for a long time after the Prophet's death. So, but this is a way of reforming Islam. It's a way of saying, because you can't say that Islam is being reformed because Islam is perfect. So what do? You have to do it another way, which is you have to say that, no, that's not true. That's the wrong interpretation. That's not how you interpret it. I don't know if they're more dangerous. Like, I used to get really irritated with people that say things like that, and people that say things like Islam is this and that and progressive. I think I support people like that now, like, because I mean we want the world to be a better place. We don't want, like, why would we fight people like that, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with that interpretation, and I don't think it's based on the text. But I think we should support people that want to reform Islam. Like, help them out, make the job easier, not more difficult. The problem is for seculars like you, there's no alternative to religion. There's alternatives to religion. Secular humanism is an alternative to religion. Some people say it's like a religion. Mindfulness is an alternative to religion. It's a subset of Buddhism, and it's beautiful. It has beautiful teachings on like being content with yourself and being happy and being in the moment and enjoying the moment and enjoying the experience and not wanting what you can't have and being like kind of like qadar Allah, like accepting qadr, right? You know what I'm saying? Like the predestination. So like stuff like that you find in Buddhism. Sorry, especially in mindfulness. And mindfulness, there's no dogma. There's no like heaven and hell and God, and it's based on science too, eh? By the way, the science of mindfulness is amazing. It's powerful. It can help you, make you healthier, reduce anxiety, reduce stress, help you lose weight. This is all based on science. This is not dogma. This is science. There's science behind this. Even hardcore atheists like Sam Harris have a book. He has a book on mindfulness, right? Called Waking Up. So honestly speaking, there is alternatives to religion. Whatever you want to call it religion. I follow secular humanism. That's my religion. Humanity is my religion, right? Okay. I'm glad that the sound issue is taken care of. Science does not provide a guideline to live your life. Religion gives you one, even if it comes to morality you don't agree with. But it's a false reason to live your life. It's Muhammad's reason to live your life. We were all made to worship Allah. That's the purpose of life. Night and day to worship Allah. Is it true? Is it a true purpose of life? Absolutely not. There is no Allah. There's nobody out there to hear my du'as. If I make du'a, there's no answer. If there's an answer, people will say, oh, it's answered. But, I mean, how do we... If there was... Let's think about this using reason. If there was a true God out there, and you prayed to that God, wouldn't you have a greater than normal chance of that prayer being accepted? Baseline, let's call it placebo. Placebo effect. In science, in order to remove bias, we have a placebo. So we have two groups of people, right? One's a control group, one's the actual one being studied, right? So let's say you have some drink. You have this drink, and then you have another one, which is different. One of them has, let's say, something to help you with working out. Now, how do we know if this really works? Does this workout supplement actually help you? Easy, we test it. So let's give 10 people this workout supplement and give 10 people nothing. Okay, it has some effects. But then, let's say you give people water and you didn't tell them there's nothing in it, just flavor. And they still reported they felt better in the workout. Why does that happen? We've seen that happens. It's called the Hawthorne effect or the placebo effect. People, when they think they're being, there's something happening, like you've been giving them medicine, even if you gave them flavored water, they'd be like, yeah, I felt my workout was better than usual, right? And I was running faster and whatever. So in order to counter the placebo effect, what you do, Hawthorne effect is different. It's when people know they're being studied, but I guess it's similar. I'm not sure if it's similar or different. But anyways, so the placebo effect, in order to counter that, you have to have two groups of people. One, you give them a fake drug or whatever, and one, you give them a real one. So if you wanted to study prayer, dua, wanted to know does it work? We should have two groups of people, one praying to a real God, one praying to a false God. You should be able to see the one praying to the real God would be answered more than average. If they both ended up answered the same amount of times, what would that mean? If I prayed to Buddha, you prayed to Jesus, you prayed to Krishna, let's say I'm the guy that talks to my plants over there, right? And we all had the same results, talking to your plants or not talking to your plants. If we studied 100 people in a Muslim country or even a non-Muslim country every day for 1 year, before going out for the daily commute to work, they said the adhkar of traveling. Subhanalladhi sakhkhara lana hada wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. And then we had 50 people who said Hai Ram, Hai Ram, Hai Ram, Krishna Ram, Ram Krishna. Sorry, I don't know any Hindu prayer. I just made that up. And we had 50 people that sang a rock and roll song. And then we measured these people for 1 year. If God is real, God is answering prayers, and God actually will protect you by saying this dua, the group that said Subhanalladhi should have less accidents than the other two groups. Do we see that? Do we see that, like the prayer is actually having less or more of effect? And actually, somebody did the study. Somebody did this study, and I'm going to show you. They did this study at Harvard. It's called a Harvard prayer study. And what they found out was that praying for people didn't have any effect. It didn't help people get better faster in the hospital. And in fact, people that were told someone's praying for you, it actually took them longer to get better. Like, that was weird. It's almost like it made them anxious that someone's praying for me, so I need to get better faster. This was one of the logical dilemmas I had when I was kind of questioning Islam. Actually, this was one of the things that actually it started me on questioning. I was kind of wondering, things were coming to my mind, that how come, like, if I say the dua, don't say the dua when I'm driving, it doesn't seem to work. I mean, I heard of people that were waking up for Fajr, the early prayer. I met a guy at the mosque, I went for Fajr, and it was like, early in the morning, right? And he told me that he used to wake up for Fajr every day and drive, and he got in a car accident. I was like, whoa, and that's interesting. Like, I'm not saying if you go for Fajr, you're not going to get car accidents, but it's like almost like the extreme tiredness had an effect on him and had the opposite effect of protecting him. It actually hurt him. And so, waking up early in the morning, Muslims have to wake up and pray, and disturbs the sleep. Does this actually have a helpful use to humanity, or is this actually harmful for humanity? And fasting all day and top of praying, and this lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of water, is this good for humanity? Is this bad for humanity? So these type of things, what actually made me start to think that maybe the prayer doesn't actually have an effect. And lo and behold, there is no effect of the prayer. Prayer has no effect. I truly believe there's no effect of prayer. And that was, like I said, the Harvard prayer study. I'll share the link. I mean, this is basically, yeah. Okay. Exodus 21:20. Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for your frequent comments. He who has the most golden rule. That's the That's one version of the golden rule. That's a bad version of the golden rule. Okay. Quran does not guarantee any good things if you pray more, says Sofetar. Yes, I understand that, but my question is, okay, look, is prayer real? Is the effects of prayer real? Does it have any effect in our world? Any effect? Any effect that we can study, measure, observe, document, anything? If you're saying, I pray and may not be answered, may be answered, okay, fine. But if you have 1,000 people praying, Muslim countries, shouldn't we find Muslim countries are doing better in just about everything? They have Allah on their side. Muslims have Allah on their side, and yet they seem to be all screwed up. Muslim countries, completely messed up. Is it all the West's fault? Bad old West messing up all the Muslim countries. And what does Muslim countries have? We have Allah on our side. Yeah, we're all garbage. Why are Muslim countries lagging in just about everything, right? Like, why is it nobody wants to live in Muslim countries? Why are people running to the West? Because secular democracy is better for humanity. Secular democracy is better for humans. You know, having equal rights for men and women is better. Allowing women to study is better. Not spending day and night memorizing Quran and dogma and, you know, like, that's not even useful for humanity. It's just a waste of time memorizing ancient books, studying ancient rules on wudu and how many do you move your finger and not move your finger, or does fighting break your wudu? Actually, fighting breaks your wudu, but like touching a woman, does it break your wudu or not break your wudu? If you go for Hajj, you do this or do that first. If you forget to cut your nails, it's like such a waste of time on useless shit. That's why Muslim countries are behind, not because of the West, because of Islam, because of religion, because of stupid, useless dogma. Right? And I couldn't see this before, and now I see this very clearly. So if they have Allah on their side, why are Muslim countries still far behind? If they have the true religion of God, why does nobody want to live in a Muslim country? Why are Muslims doing so badly in the world? And the closer they get to secular democracy, you find they do better. Okay? That's my opinion. If you disagree, please tell me why. Okay. Christianity. Okay, hold on. Would you have said the same things if you were living in the Islamic civilizations in 1200s? Not if I enjoyed having a head on my neck. I wouldn't have said what I'm saying now. Islamic society had its high peak, and I don't think it had anything to do with Islam. Islam doesn't encourage science. Islam doesn't encourage learning. Islam encourages dogma and memorizing and obeying the Prophet and following the Prophet and believing in ancient books of stories of talking ants and whatever. Like, why is that good for humanity? Why does humanity need that nonsense, right? Why is democracy good? What's a better alternative to democracy? Democracy is a system where everyone, you know, we cannot necessarily give everybody what they want, but it's as close as we can get, right? We have a majority basically make the law, and we try to pay attention to the minority as well. Of course, there's going to be people that are upset in a democracy because their rights don't get met, for example, minorities, for example, but as much as possible, we try to maintain the moral sphere, and we try to give everybody the rights. I mean, look at how Muslims are treated in the West in democracy, and look how dictators, what's better, like fascism, communism, dictatorship? Like, what's the alternative to democracy if you're saying democracy sucks? Democracy is fantastic. I mean, what better system do you have? I'm sorry, I don't know the criticisms of, I don't know what Socrates and Thomas Jefferson criticized about democracy. I just ask, what's the alternative, right? How many hadith books are there? Max is saying. Has anyone read every single hadith? I highly doubt anyone has ever read any single hadith. There's this Siha, the 6 authentic books of hadith which people actually refer to. For the most part, the 2 most important books of hadith are Bukhari and Muslim for Sunni Muslims. And I actually have a post on that as well, about how hadith are not reliable. The seerah, there's also the seerah, which is the story of the Prophet, which is even less reliable. And then there's a hadith books, right? There's Imam Malik's Muwatta, which is the oldest one, which was compiled sometime between 150 and 180 after the Hijrah. Hijrah is the migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. Then we have multiple versions of Imam Malik's Muwatta. One has 1900 hadith and one has 3000 hadith. Okay? So the question is, even this earliest collection, how do we even know this is like which one is authentic, the 1900 or the 3000? How do we even know that the 1900 he has are correct? You gotta trust him, right? So that's one. Okay. Apparently, he had over 100,000 narrations, which he included the 1900 from, right? Now, if you go to Bukhari is the most popular one, who seemed to have gone through all of the hadith possible, and he memorized supposedly over 100,000 hadith. 100,000 hadith. Okay? And then, out of that, his complete collection was 600,000, and from that, he reduced it to 2,000. 2,200 to 2,600, which is insane. Basically 2%, so 98%, more than 99% he threw out. Okay, and before every one he would write down, he would pray 2 rakats of prayer, asking Allah to guide him, whether this was authentic or not. And this was over 200 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad. And even in Bukhari, which is the most authentic collection of hadith, you find all sorts of crazy stories, like monkeys stoning each other because of adultery. And then, you have scholars even will reject this hadith, right? About stoning. Then you have this crazy long hadith, which is like do 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 do. I want to show you how long it is. Just wait and see. It's like insane. Look how long it is. Oh, there we go. We're at the end. So this entire hadith, supposedly, from the time of Muhammad, was narrated by Aisha. Aisha memorized this entire thing word for word and narrated it to somebody else, who narrated it to somebody else, who narrated it to somebody else. 200 years later, it got written down in Bukhari's book. Okay, this thing is pretty damn long. Okay, now this is one example of a long hadith. I just picked a random example. I didn't even look for the longest one. This is just one freaking example. And all the hadith are like this. Not this long necessarily, but there's tons of hadith. And how do you know if this freaking thing was truly memorized word for word, passed on from generation to generation? And I'm not saying only the long hadith, even the short hadith. How do you know? Right? The Quran was memorized by multiple people from the time of Uthman. So if you want to accept the Quran as authentic, I don't know, maybe it is authentic. My only worry with the Quran is whether the Quran of Uthman was really the Quran of Muhammad. I really don't know that. All the evidence was destroyed. And there's some people that had different versions of Quran, right? And there's stories of in the hadith of Quran being like forgotten and whatever, right? Verses of stoning of adulterers and stuff like that. So I'm not too sure about the Quran being completely like the same Quran that the Prophet had, but for sure, the version that Uthman had seems to be the version that we have. And I haven't looked into the whole multiple Quran thing and all that, but for the most part, I don't really challenge that for the most part. But the hadith is like, man, like everybody knows, like there's so much trouble with hadith. You don't even know like what's true and what's not true. I use these hadith to discuss with Muslims because Muslims use this for the religion, for the prayer, how they pray, how they fast, how they do the Hajj, how they do everything. Everything is based on the hadith, right? And Quran. So if you can't trust the most authentic hadith, what can you trust, right? That's my concern about the hadith. Oops. Okay. Islam is peace, someone said. Okay, I'm not sure how Islam is peace. I don't think so. Are there hadith that directly contradict the Quran? Exodus is asking, are there hadith that directly contradict the Quran? It all depends how you want to interpret the hadith, right? Like the Quran says to obey Muhammad, and whatever Muhammad said is basically the rulings, right? Sunni Muslims per se, they don't say the Quran the hadith contradicts the Quran, they try to say that the hadith explains the Quran. This is the traditional Sunni way of looking at the world. So I'm not sure of an example of a hadith contradicting the Quran, but some people would say, like, the killing of apostates goes against the Quran because the Quran says La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in religion, right? So maybe some hadith contradict the Quran, but Sunni Muslims, they don't consider it contradiction, they consider it explanation. So they will actually consider the Quran explains the Quran, the hadith explains the Quran, not contradicts it in any sense. At what age did I leave Islam? Jeffrey is asking. It was 2 years ago, so I was 32. I converted to Sunni Islam around probably 18, like in my last year, second last year of high school, and I left Islam 2 years ago. So I was Muslim for 15 years, and I basically only left Islam recently, 2 years ago, I guess. Or was it 3 years now? Hold on. No, it was 2 years ago. So yeah, that's basically what it is for me. And those of you who are streaming on Facebook and asking questions, I apologize. I haven't been keeping up with the Facebook comments. I'll just try to see if anyone left a comment that I can respond to. Okay, no, there's only one comment. Okay, good. Because I haven't been paying attention. Oh, and it's filtered out for some reason. I can't see it. Ah. Okay, anyways, if you guys are watching on Facebook, I'm actually responding to comments on YouTube, not on Facebook, because I don't see any comments and I can't keep up with 2 streams. But I'm also broadcasting this on both channels. Okay. The 7 to 10 accepted variants of the Quran. Ah, yes. There's different readings of the Quran, which is interesting, which is, one's Hafs, one's Warsh, one's Qalun, and they even sound different. Greetings, BJ Price. They even sound different, the different narrations of the Quran, the different variants of the Quran. So, yeah, that's also a troubling thing. Hold on, let me see if I can find an example of this. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to find an example. Here we go. Alright. Because people are actually surprised. Some people don't realize that there's differences. Okay, here we go. So there's different recitations, and these are all considered authentic according to Muslims. Strangely, there's a hadith that says that some man was reading the Quran differently than another man, and Omar got mad and said, "How are you reading this so differently?" And he grabbed him by the neck and he took him to the Prophet, and the Prophet said, "No, it's okay. The Quran was revealed in 7 dialects." Like, what the heck? The Qurayshi dialect, which was his dialect, and then other ones. So they have different ways of reading it, which is weird, right? So let me see if this will actually come out. This is my old website, verse by verse Quran, right? And so I made this little thing where you can actually listen to the recitation, right? Let's listen to this one.
أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر.
Okay, so that's the standard Welsh, that's the standard Hafs reading. And in this one, he's going to read one of the words differently.
شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى.
It's interesting that if Allah revealed the Quran and it comes from the preserved tablets, how is it that there's different readings of the Quran, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, why is it that you can actually end up with different ways of listening to this if there's only one actual Quran, right? So, like, let's see if we can find a more clear example.
قل ربي يعلم القول في السماء والأرض.
So that's one example. And 21:4, I'm going to go to standard recitation.
قال ربي.
Okay, that one was clear. That was clear as day. Look, he says قال ربي. Listen to that, okay? Listen to that again. Hopefully you can hear it.
قال ربي.
Okay? قال ربي. That's the beginning. Now I'm going to go to a different one, which is Warsh. This is one of the variant readings of the Quran. Watch.
قل
Did you hear
ربي
that? He didn't say Qala Rabbi, he said Qur Rabbi. Qur Rabbi. So this is an interesting example of how there's different readings of the Quran. There we go. I just posted the link, so you have it. Just to let you know, how is it possible? Just to ask yourself, how is it possible, that there's multiple readings of the Quran if the Quran came from this preserved tablet in paradise, came down to Muhammad, piece by piece, even though it was already revealed before any of the world was created. Allah made the Quran. It's his attribute. It's even considered one of his attributes, the speech of Allah, Kalamullah. So how is it that there's multiple ways to read it? It's very strange, right? Is it 10 Qurans or something in paradise? Like, what the? So again, 99% of Muslims don't know about the variant readings of the Quran. So they're actually quite surprised. And this is not just like crazy Orientalist stuff. Like, Muslims know about these. I mean, Muslims don't know, but like scholars know about these things, right? Like this is not like this is actually accepted in the Sunni Muslim community. And I say Sunni because I don't know about Shias what they believe, but Sunnis accept that there's variant readings of the Quran, different ways to read it. Qul Rabbi, Qala Rabbi, right? That's different, right? So, okay. Isn't that because the original Qurans didn't have tashkil? Tiger 2 is asking. No, I think it's more than just a tashkil. I think it's more than that. So he's saying in the Arabic language, I'll just explain what this means. Let's see if I can show you. In the Arabic language, you have letters with little things on top. So this is a ta with a little fatha on it, which means ta. If you had the line below it, it would be T. But if you see here, there's different ones. This says ya'lamun, this says ta'lamun. That's totally different. It's not even the fatha kasra dhamma, it's not just the vowels. So just to explain to people, Arabs don't write Arabic with the vowels. They typically just write the letters without these little lines and dots on top. These little lines, the dot is, yes, the two dots for ta is there, but that little line on top of the two dots is not there, because they just know from the context of the sentence and the placing that it's a ta, a t, or a tu. They don't put the vowels. Yet when non-Arabs are reading, like in the Quran, all the vowels are there. Like if you see right here, there's no vowels, right? But I know it says riwaya. Now I don't speak Arabic, but I know this says riwaya Hafs on Asim. I can read that. I know it says riwaya, not ruwaya, not rawaya. I know that. Now the Quran, the old Quran, didn't have the tashkil, right? They added it later to make it easier for non-Arabs to read it. But like, look at this one. How is it this one has a ya at the beginning and this one has a ta? The dots on the bottom or the dots on the top. Look at the meaning. You do, they do. Like, whoa, weird stuff, right? And like I said, these are accepted by Muslims, that these are all legit. Nobody can deny these are legit, right? So anyhow, Muslims will say, oh, these are just minor things, whatever. But here's another one. It's kind of crazy. Fabima versus just bima. Where did the fa come from? Right? Like, whoa. Like, that's a whole other word just added right there. Fabima. Fa means so, right? Kind of. So, this one's just bima. So, like, again, this is not just like Orientalist criticisms of Islam. Muslims believe in this stuff. Okay? They believe there's variant readings of the Quran. So it's kind of shady stuff, eh? Like, okay. Thank you, Jeffrey Booty. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Funny name. Okay. So Exodus is saying, so Allah sat up in heaven and he allowed thousands of hadith to be written so that nobody to be sure what's true and what's not. Yet he wasted his time making the Quran supposedly perfect. Yeah, exactly. This whole religion. Why did God allow Jesus to look like he was crucified? If according to the Islamic story, Jesus was crucified and God made it, Jesus wasn't crucified and God made it seem like he was crucified. Like, That's bizarre. Like, why would God want to trick people and make them think that, he was crucified? Sorry, that Jesus was crucified, right? Like, why would you trick all those people? Of course, it makes sense if someone comes after the fact and wants to change the whole story, and he'll say, "Oh, Jesus wasn't actually crucified. It was just looking like he crucified," but he didn't think it through very well, because that means God is deceiving people. He's deceiving all of those Christians to think that Jesus was killed on a cross, but he wasn't actually killed on a cross, thus creating the biggest religion in all of humanity, that false religion, a false worship of false gods. Why would Allah do that, right? Why would God do that, right? Bizarre. Oh my God. Joshua is saying, look at the Greek writing for 666 and look at the Arabic for the name of Allah. Dude, 666 in Greek, therefore Allah is Satan. Come on, man. Who are you trying to like convince with this type of arguments? In Greek, the word 666 looks like Allah in Arabic, so you think like Satan, Allah is Satan? Help, protect me from Satan, from Allah, Satan. Come on, man. Come on. Give me a break. Allah is the high God of the Arabs, the pagan high God. But he's the one God that people worship today. He's not Satan. He's not satanic or something. Muslims think he's the same God as the Christians and Jews are worshipping. It's the one God, right? So that's the Islamic story. But to say like it's Satan or something, come on, like it's, anyways, sorry. I said a little bit too much about that. Okay, so maybe it looks like Satan or something, but that's just a coincidence. That doesn't mean anything, unless you're saying Muhammad. Like, don't forget, Christian Jews and Arab Jews and Arab Christians also use the word Allah. They also say Jesus is Ibn Allah, son of Allah. They use the same terminology, even though they don't believe the same Allah that Muslims believe in, that has 99 names and all that, but they call him Allah as well. So Allah just in general means God. It means specifically also the Islamic God, but in general, even non-Muslims will use the word Allah to mean God. Okay, so I wouldn't really focus too much on what the word looks like in Greek and all that nonsense. Yeshua, I don't believe there's a day of judgment coming. It's been 2,000 years since Jesus came. Hasn't been any day of judgment. It's been 1400 years since Muhammad came. Hasn't been any day of judgment. I highly figure there's no day of judgment. Okay, I think it's pretty clear there's no day of judgment coming. Jesus is not coming back. Imam al-Mahdi is not coming back. Muslims, there's no Jesus, no Mahdi coming back, right? It's all lies, buddy. There's no Gog and Magog coming. It's all lies. Just forget about the day of judgment. You're going to be waiting for a long time. You're going to be waiting for the day of judgment. There's going to be no day of judgment, and there's going to be no Jesus and no Allah and no God, and nobody saying you did this and you did this and you did this. Nope, not happening. So where does morality come from? It comes from inside. We need to deal with it the best we can, the best way we can for us humans, not believing in some God to fix everything, right? Max says, I think the hadith about the 7 recitations is fabricated to reconcile the problem the Muslims faced when they saw the multiple versions of the Quran. That's a great idea. That's a great theory. It makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I never thought about that. If there was multiple readings of the Quran, it makes perfect sense to fabricate that there's 7 readings of the Quran, because you have multiple versions of the Quran. So what do you do with those multiple versions? Oh, Prophet said there's multiple versions, there's 7 versions, and whoever reads them is reading the okay version. Dude, I could hug you for that, Max. That's a great comment. That's a fantastic observation, and it makes perfect sense. Whenever we find problems in the Quran and we find the hadith saves the Quran, because the hadith came so much after that, we can basically consider that yes, it makes sense the hadith was made up to fix the Quran, right? Or to save the Quran. That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you for that golden comment. If I can give you like leaded gold or some sort of like badge or something next to you, I can't. There's no such thing. There's no starring. There's no giving little stars or anything on Facebook. That's too bad. Philosophy Cafe is saying, so I guess one might have to search the whole Quran and find latter verses that abrogate earlier verses. someone did a project where they said the Quran in order of revelation. It's hard to know for sure, like what verses were ordered in um, what what verses were what the correct order of revelation was. We roughly know what the early verses and late verses are. We roughly know which verses were revealed in Makkah and which one were revealed in Medina. The Meccan verses at the time when Prophet started receiving revelation are all short ones, and the Medinan verses, the ones in Medina after the Islamic State was established, are mainly longer surahs or chapters. But it's not always the case, and sometimes they're mixed up, and sometimes the one piece of it is revealed in Makkah and it was moved to it was moved to one of the longer ones or whatever. So, but there is a Quran in order of revelation someone has made online, which I haven't really looked into, but use at your own risk. It may or may not be reliable. Okay. Alright, so sorry. Can an unabrogated verse and the verse that abrogates it be separated by many surahs? Yes, very much so. It's just like one example, and some Muslims don't even believe in abrogation. They say there's no such thing as abrogation. The Quran itself says, it says to Muhammad that we don't make you forget a verse, except that we reveal it with a better one. We replace it with a better one. So it's kind of funny, like it's almost like Muhammad got caught, and then it's like we do not abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten, except that we bring forth a better one or a similar one. Okay, don't you know that Allah is all things competent? Why would Allah abrogate a verse and bring a similar one? Like, seriously, why would you bring a similar verse after you just abrogated? Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense, right? And then saying Allah is over all things competent, like, that makes no sense. Like I mean, but some Muslims will say abrogation is like not exactly like abrogated in that sense. They'll say it's like abrogated in the sense of don't come near prayer while you're drunk, and then don't drink. So the don't come near prayer when you're drunk, that was abrogated. Some Muslims will say no, that wasn't abrogated, it's still true. And then other Muslims will say like there's no compulsion in religion. Like Salafis will say there's no compulsion in religion. La ikrah fid din was replaced with another one that basically Surah Tawbah, which that basically you have to fight and all that, right? So some Muslims will say it's application, some Muslims say it's not application. It's a complicated topic, and I haven't really studied it in great detail. Nim Glace is saying, can I explain the 1924 Quran? I don't really know too much about that. Let me see if that's what I think it is. Okay, no, I don't know about that. So I will skip that question. Okay. Scrolling down, okay. Is the Heavenly Quran out of order too? Exodus 21 is asking, is the Heavenly Quran out of order? It's a funny question. It's a good point. It's a really good point. Is the Heavenly Quran out of order? More chains. Iman means faith. Yes. I grew up. More chains is saying I grew up in a Muslim family, so I know the arguments and the excuses. But in the end, they'll always say my iman will never break. So basically, what they're saying is I'm closed-minded, and nothing will convince me no matter what, which is kind of sad. Okay. Arif left Islam recently. Congratulations. It's a difficult decision to make, and it's difficult, especially if you're in a Muslim country. It's more difficult. I wish you all the best. Keep studying, keep learning, and keep on the path of enlightenment and reason. And congratulations to our friend Arif, who has recently left Islam. It's a difficult thing. Most people are not able to leave Islam due to mental cognitive dissonance, due to the what they will lose in their life, due to fear of hell. It's just so many reasons why people don't want to leave Islam. But I congratulate you for that. That was a brave thing to do, and I think it's an honorable thing to do. To find out that to leave the religion after you find out it's false, right? Philosophy Cafe is asking, do Muslims that criticize the Trinity for chopping up God into parts never see anything wrong with attributing 99 names to God? Kind of the same thing? Not quite. The Trinity is kind of like three entities in one, in a sense: Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Whereas the 99 names of God, they're all like attributes and names of the same God. So even though the funny thing is they contradict each other, like Ashadidul Iqab, mighty and severe in punishment, right? And Al Mujib Ad Dar, the one that humiliates people or something like that. And then yet he's Arhamur Rahimin, the most merciful of those that show mercy. So these are contradictory names. They don't even make sense in context of each other. So how is it that, yeah, it's just weird. It's just, they don't make sense. Like, the names don't make sense, right? Allah can be called Satan because even if they're saying the same God, Christians beg to differ. The God described in Scripture is not Muhammad's God. Satan is a massive counterfeit. There's no such thing as Satan. There's no such thing as Satan. And so you cannot say Islam is a satanic religion. I guess you would say that if you're Christian because you believe that Jesus is a true God or whatever. And Islam is inspired by the devil. Islam is inspired by one man that wanted to gain some personal benefits, that wanted to maybe revive what he thought was monotheism and get some benefits along the way. But I don't know if I would call it satanic, to be honest. And what's so bad about Satan, anyways? Why is Satan so bad? What did Satan do? Like, didn't God make Satan? What does Satan do that's so bad? He disobeyed God. He like in the Islamic story, he was commanded to bow down to Adam, and then he refused, so he became like outcast and rejected, and he said, I'm going to mislead man, and he got mad at men. But like, how do you justify that if God made Satan? Like, how is Satan such a bad guy? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, it's just a cop-out. Like, the whole idea of Satan was invented in order to save God from being evil. Like, why do evil things happen in the world? Because of Satan. And there's a good video I'd like to recommend. I will just pop it on the screen so people can see it. 1 second. Okay. It's called Evolution of Satan in the Bible. And it's kind of interesting because it shows how, and the other good video is the evolution of Jesus in the Bible. Those are two good videos. So check out these videos. I'll post the links just now, and you'll see that Satan didn't exist until basically he barely appears in the Bible until like way later. And so let me just post, and even the evolution of Jesus in the Bible, it's another great video that I highly recommend that people watch. Okay, so I posted the two videos, the evolution of Jesus and the evolution of Satan in the Bible, and I think it's great to learn that. Okay. Jesse's saying, I want to thank everyone for being respectful and mature. That's true. It's a very good conversation tonight. Whoever's online hasn't been at all nasty, didn't get any trolls or anything, and that was great. Happy to do that. God is a controlling psycho. According to the God of the Bible, what did he do? Let's talk about this. God decided to murder all of humanity for not worshipping him. Is that not like a psycho? What did he do with the great flood? He flooded the entire earth and he killed all of humanity except for a few people. Is that not a murderous psychopath? And then guess what he did? He decided to make rainbows because he felt bad about what he did. So he to be reminded never to annihilate the human race again. What a sweet, wonderful God that is. Do you really truly believe that God is not a psychopath? The Abrahamic God is a psychopath. Told Abraham to sacrifice his son, killed the Egyptian children because, they didn't accept Moses. Like, what kind of nonsense, like, God is this? Like, I find it funny when Christians want to put their God like as such a high, moral God, and Allah is such an evil God. Like, your Christian God is just as terrible as the Islamic God. Seriously. He's gonna burn everybody in hell that doesn't accept Jesus died for their sins. Right? Like, what kind of God does that? What kind of God tortures people in hell simply for what they think in their mind? I believe Jesus died for my sins. Okay, you're a good guy, you go to paradise. I don't believe Jesus died for my sins. Go to hell. You terrible person. Go to hell. Or in the Islamic version, I believe in Allah. You're a good guy. I don't believe in Allah. You go to hell. Like, seriously, it's nonsense. And there's no evidence that the Quran is there's no evidence the Bible is the word of God. The Bible suffers from the same flaws, scientific errors, lack of foresight. It shows that it was man-made. Everything in the Bible, every single thing in the Bible, just like every single thing in the Quran, represents the flawed work of men, not the word of a divine inspiration. Christians, Exodus is asking, Exodus 21 verse 20. Look up that verse, Exodus 21 verse 20, and tell me, what type of God allows you to beat your slave and doesn't punish you because the slave doesn't die? Because if the slave dies in a few days, it's okay, apparently, according to the Christian God, right? Look up Exodus 21 verse 20. Look it up. Tell me, what kind of God allows you to own people, to beat them, and not to punish you if they don't die? What kind of God allowed the Israelites to kill the Midianites and keep the virgin women alive as slaves? Hello, what kind of God does that? Allows you to kill the Midianite women and keep them as slaves, the virgins. Sounds like something Muhammad would do, doesn't it? Keeping the virgins for himself. Now the Christian God did that apparently in the Bible. So what kind of moral God, what kind of moral monster is this God? Allows you to beat slaves, allowed people to kill others and then keep them as slaves. Like come on. I honestly wonder when I see Christians criticizing the morality in Islam, like I get it. Christianity doesn't allow these things anymore. But your God is the same God that did all these same things if you believe in him. Tinker, hey, how's it going, man? You missed a bunch of these videos. You finally made it. That's good. Yeah, the scary thing about Allah is you're always playing Russian roulette. You don't know if you're going to heaven or hell. Yeah, it creates a mental anxiety. The belief in God, the belief in hell, and belief in God in Islam gives you anxiety, makes you worried, makes you feel like you don't know what's going on, and are you going to go to hell, are you going to go to heaven? I totally agree with you. It creates a lot of mental burden for a believer, and you're constantly worried. I have to say my next prayer, I have to say my next prayer, I have to say my next prayer, because you pray 5 times a day. It just worries you, and it gives you a lot of stress, right? So I absolutely agree. Max, isn't Judaism the most humanistic religion because there's no hell, at least? I think Buddhism is really awesome, frankly speaking. I think Buddhism has some really good values without believing in God. Judaism, yeah, they don't really believe in God in hell. They believe in this shadow world or something. I don't know the details, but yeah, I don't think Judaism is the most humanistic religion because it's only their own kind of sect that can convert, or you're not supposed to even convert to Judaism or something. Truly speaking, I think that, Buddhism, as far as I know right now, Buddhism's the best. That's my opinion. At the very least, at least the mindfulness in Buddhism. Christians knowing they are going to heaven makes them insufferable. Exodus, do you mean that the life becomes suffering because they know they're going to go to hell or something? Max says the only way to be sure you go to heaven in Islam is to make jihad. I agree with you on that. I do agree with you, and I have a video on jihad and ISIS and all that, and I absolutely agree with you that the idea of jihad is something that's kind of emphasized in order to make it yeah, dying for jihad is the only way to go to heaven, basically, for sure, as a Muslim, right? Suicide, I used to consider suicide bombing haram, but I talk about that in detail in my video. I just posted the link. Buddhism is more of a philosophy than a religion, King Koala is saying. But the funny thing is, everybody says that. All religions say, my religion is more like a way of life than a religion. Everybody says that. None of the religions which believe in reincarnation have the concept of eternal hell. That's true. I personally don't believe in reincarnation. In a way, I hope it's true because at least I will carry on in some other existence. But I personally don't see any evidence for it, and so I'm skeptical to say the least. I think more likely we just die and that's it. That's the end of the existence. Can Arif is asking, can a Muslim man marry a child according to Sharia law? Yes, on my last live video, we talked about this, and this one guy started arguing with me and saying, no, 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 Islam doesn't allow you to marry children, but it does allow you to marry children, and I will just post this on the screen for 1 second. And the evidence is chapter 65, verse 4 in the Quran. I just posted the link. I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but yeah, I guess I should because this is a morality talk. Why is it a problem that the Quran allows you to have sex with prepubescent girls? The evidence is in the Quran, not even in the hadith, that there's a waiting period for those who you sleep with that basically haven't menstruated. So what does not menstruated means? Basically it means those who haven't had a period yet. So this is like little girls. And the hadith does give justification that this is talking about little girls, not the exceptional rare woman who never gets a period, who never menstruates or something. It's actually talking about young little girls. And I justify that and explain that. And the reason this is bad is because there's multiple harmful health effects of having sex with little girls. And basically we don't do that anymore because also not only that, but little young kids cannot consent to sex per se. They're too little to really understand what's going on. So it's harmful to allow such a thing, right? So someone's saying Jainism and Sikhism are most humanistic. I don't really know too much about that. Chaudhry is saying Islam gave me so much anxiety for needing to pray. Absolutely. Anxiety about everything, right? Okay. So I'm continuing to just go through the comments. Exodus 21 verse 20 has said you decoded my name. Yes, I looked up your name the first time I saw your comment. I don't know when you commented on my blog, on my post a long time ago. I looked up your name and I understood right away what you were saying. Okay. Right. Muslims are too stupid to understand informed consent. Well, I think at the time of Muhammad there was no such thing. There's no such thing as consent back then. It's a modern concept, the concept of consent. Mo Chain said, I was told if I don't pray and I miss one rakat on purpose, I'll spend 80,000 years in hell. Yeah. Muslims do make comments like that. If you don't pray, you're gonna be in hell and this and that. I've heard some funny stories too that if you miss one day of fasting intentionally, you can never make it up and you'll this and that. There's all sorts of crazy hadith that people make up and stories that are not even in the religion itself. Yeah, all religions are nuts. I think they're saying. Yeah, basically, I've heard the funniest stories as a Muslim. Like one guy was telling me, if you listen to music, there was this one guy that listened to music and he was kicked out of his grave. Like his grave was like, get out of here, and came out of the grave. And they buried him again and he came out again. And like come on, like come up with the most silliest like stories to justify these silly things, right? Okay. How can a child give consent? Yeah, exactly. A child cannot consent to sex. It just doesn't make sense. Child doesn't understand that what's going on, right? So like, how can you allow marriage to children? Like, excuse me. Like I said, Muslims nowadays, they don't like that, so they're trying to reinterpret and say, Aisha was 18, and you need consent and all that. According to Muhammad, consent of a virgin is silence. So if you ask her and she says nothing, that means she accepts the marriage, which is interesting, right? Okay. I hope you reincarnate into a beautiful butterfly. Thank you, Asfa. What do I think of people that create their own moral book, no God, anything but rules that they follow religiously? I'm not totally sure what you mean, make up their own rules. Don't we all do that? Don't even religious people make up their own rules? Because let's say, like, they don't like something in the religion, like slavery. They won't do it, right? I mean, we don't have a choice to do it now, but I mean, they'll just be, no, 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 slavery is not allowed in Islam anymore. It was abrogated or whatever. Or they'll say, like for example, interest is forbidden in Islam, clearly in the Quran. But Muslims will say, no, 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 it's justified to buy your own house because it's just for like living purposes and this and that. So people kind of pick and choose. Everyone picks and chooses, right? Picks and chooses. Some people will music is haram. Some will say, no, 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 music is okay because of this and this and this. So everybody picks and chooses their own ways. Anyways, atheists do this. Everybody does this, right? Like religious people do this. I don't think that. Yeah. Basically, everybody does that. Tinker is saying Buddhism is crazy too. I don't really go by like Buddhism per se, but like I said, I like mindfulness. I really like the idea of mindfulness, that you can pull out of Buddhism and you can get some benefits from it. So if anyone wants some sort of spirituality in their life, look up look up mindfulness. Alright. The Abrahamic religions are the only three religions in the world. The rest of the traditions are cultures, they can be reformed. I guess so. Yeah, I guess in a sense, right? Like you can change them. And do I think hell-mongering children is child abuse? I think people do this because they believe in the religion and they believe that hell is real. So it's kind of like warning the kids, to look both ways before they cross the street. I do think it's terrible because it's false, but I don't blame people for teaching their kids about hell because they believe in hell. I mean, what else can I say, right? You know what I mean? So I guess that's unfortunately the case, right? Like if they believe in hell, then they're gonna teach the kids about hell, because they're worried about the kids and they're kind of scared of Allah, right? They're scared Allah's gonna hurt the kids. So what can they do, right? Yeah, there is abuse in the community sometimes with imams and stuff, and yeah, people should report those imams. And if there's any terrorism or any sort of like worry about people becoming radicalized, Muslims should report them as well. And basically, I hope that people are able to be loyal to their fellow humans over the religion. No, I didn't say that. Tinker is asking. I didn't say religions have no consent. Muhammad said silence is a consent of a virgin. So if you go to sunnah.com, you can search for virgin consent. I'll just do it for you, I guess. And you'll see that. I'll find it. Okay, I found it right here. So that's the consent hadith. I just sent it. Okay. Oh, sorry. Now I posted it. Someone is saying ISIS has burned people and this is haram. Asfa is saying that. So the reason why ISIS justifies burning people is they don't burn people in general. They only burned someone in a very specific case, and that was one of the pilots that was bombing people. So they said, you are burning people with your napalm bombs, so we are going to burn you back. And they justified it under qisas, so eye for an eye. Basically the Quran's ruling on eye for an eye. Scholars will say, like Hamza Yusuf, for example, will say, no, you can't apply qisas in war. But like, who's to say? You can't do this in war, you can't do that in war. They basically justified it because they decided the Quran, eye for an eye, went above the hadith that said don't burn people. And so they did it. In fact, everything ISIS does can be justified and argued from a religious Islamic perspective. They are experts in Islamic doctrine, and they are basically ultra Salafis. So if you talk to them, their only authority is the Quran and Sunnah. They don't care about what scholars say. All they care about is what the Quran and Sunnah say, which is what makes them very dangerous. Oh my God, Arif is saying debate Adam Saleh. Adam Saleh, come on, like he doesn't debate Islam. He just makes funny videos and stuff. He'd probably make a joke video about me or something, like he did with Introverted Smiles, right? So yeah, no, nobody wants to debate me anyway. So forget the debate idea. Um, Fear of hell is better than teaching your child being a slut is okay. Huh? Okay, I don't know what that means. There are no more chains. Also said there's no hadith supporting burnings. There's not just no hadith supporting burnings. The hadith said don't burn people because only God is allowed to punish with fire. So hadith explicitly forbids burning people alive. They decided to not go by that one, but to go by qisas, which is eye for an eye, and they decided to ignore that ruling. So maybe they were wrong on that, but that doesn't make them not Muslim. They were basically potentially erred on that, but they only did it to someone that also bombed people. So I'm not justifying it in any way, and that was a horrible thing they did. I'm just saying how they justify it from Islamic perspective. I'm playing the devil's advocate here. More change is saying there's burnings of Exodus is saying make a video of you debating your former self. That's a funny idea. I should do that, right? Oh yeah, Max is saying it's funny how Saudi Arabia spread Salafism, but many Salafi rulers view the rulers of Saudi Arabia as kuffar. Yeah, that's pretty funny, right? They're spreading a version of the religion that turns them into disbelievers. That is actually pretty funny. Yeah, the illiterate is saying nobody wants to debate me, but they'll debate me if I was a Christian or a Jew. That's exactly right. But even then, they wouldn't debate me if I was a Christian. If I was a Christian that knew as much as I know right now, like David would, no Muslim is going to debate him unless they're like confident and brave, like Shabir Ali. But Shabir Ali, I emailed him and I asked him if he'll debate me, and I actually emailed him before I left Islam with some of my doubts. He said he'll get back to me, never got back to me. And then I emailed him again. I said I left Islam, and then I emailed him again, and he never replied to a second email. And the third email, I said, okay, do you want to debate? Never responded to him. And now he's doing a Dawah workshop in Toronto, like how to convert people, but he doesn't want to debate me. I'm kind of sad. Excuse me. Is it true that only one sect of Islam will go to heaven and the rest will go to hell? That's what the Hadith says. There's 73 sects of Muslims. The Hadith said that the Muslim Ummah will break up into like 73 sects, or hold on, let me find it. 70 sects. Okay, I found it. Okay, the Hadith is totally wrong. It says the Jews split up into 71 sects or 72 sects, and the Christians, and similarly, and my Ummah will split up into 73 sects. And one of the other ones actually says that this one actually says that all of them are going to hell. Except for one. So, according to Muhammad, everybody's going to hell, even Muslims. There you go. Yes, Ultra Silver is saying even when you're Muslim, you go to hell. Poor Muslims. Like they just wanna worship God. Just want to be good people, and still they're gonna go to hell if they're in the wrong sect. So Shias, Ahmadis, like everybody's going to hell, even the Muslims, right? Sad. Yeah, hell's gonna be fun. Okay. More change is giving evidence for burning. How many sects are there today? Arif is asking. Good question. There's a whole lot of sects, and even among the sects, there's sects. So Shias, there's like Boras, there's like Dawoodi Boras, then there's the Ismailis. I used to be Ismaili before I became Sunni, and then there's like so many sects. Even among Muslims, even among the sects, there's sects. I don't know if there's 72 or more than 72, but I once looked up a list of sects of Christianity, and there's well over 72. There's a lot of them. So some people say, yeah, 70 means a lot. But does 71 mean a lot too? And 72 means a lot plus 2? And 73 means a lot plus 3? Like, seems weird. If Prophet was saying a lot, why didn't he just say a lot? And if he meant a lot as in 70, then why would he say 71, 72, 73? It's a funny way of saying something that's, clearly disputed and wrong, right? Yeah. Why don't Muslims put every single hadith in one book? I think each Imam made his own book, right? So Imam Bukhari made his book, Imam Muslim made his book, Imam Tirmidhi made his book. They all made their own book with the name on it, right? So they all wanted to make one book to rule them all, I guess. But nobody could actually do the job until Bukhari came along. And then again, who knows? Can I watch a 15-minute video on Sanguru? I don't even know what that's about. I'll have to take a look. Yeah. According to Salafis, Bukhari is considered the holiest after the Quran. Yeah, it is a Russian roulette religion. Basically, like, you never know, right? You're gonna hell, you're not gonna hell. Who knows, right? Anyways, I don't want to argue about burning people to hell. Burning people with fire and not burning people. The point is that some people believe and some people don't believe that, burning with fire is allowed. I used to think it was haram, so I think ISIS did an un-Islamic thing here. Somebody's asking, is there a female menstruation section in hadith? There's a whole issue. Yeah, menstruation. I actually wrote a post on this. They used to consider it like a harmful thing and a dirty thing for women, and so they didn't allow sex with people that were menstruating, and basically Islam kind of continued on the same line of other religions and other beliefs and ancient ideas about purity and all that, and they had no idea that the menstrual blood was for the baby. They had no idea there's such a thing as a female egg. In fact, the Quran never mentions a female egg, even once in the Quran. And surprisingly, the Quran even doesn't mention sperm. It mentions only seminal fluid. It doesn't mention sperm. It doesn't mention the female egg. So it's kind of not surprising that they thought it was a dirty thing, right? Like the menstrual fluid, right? So I posted the link. You can take a look at that post. Do I see a future with no Islam? I think Islam's staying for a long time. I don't think Islam's going anywhere. I think Islam's going to be reformed in some senses, and it's going to become a little bit more watered down in a sense. Like I said, people saying Aisha wasn't 9, she was 18 and all that. I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot more cultural Muslims, a lot more agnostic Muslims. I don't know, maybe there's going to be more atheists too, people just leaving Islam. But I think the bigger group is going to be the ones that still call themselves Muslim, but they don't believe in Islam. Also known as hypocrites in Islam, but they're going to become a bigger and bigger group. That's my bet. It's morning time in India. It's late now in Canada. I do think Muslims are going to leave Islam, a lot of them, and a lot of them are leaving Islam. But I think a lot of them cannot leave Islam, so they'll just leave it they'll leave it, but by name they'll still be Muslim. Hey Salman, how's it going? What do I think about all living beings from water? It's in verse 21:30. So actually 21:30 has a bigger problem, which is that have those who disbelieve not considered the heavens and earth were a joined entity, and we separated them and made from water every living thing. This is actually a bigger problem. Forget the water part. I don't know. The water part seems to have some sort of accuracy to it, maybe, in some ways. But I'm not sure about made from water, every living thing. I don't really know the science on this too well. What I do know that 21:30 has a big problem in it, and that it's talking about the heavens and the earth being joined. And the heavens and earth being joined is actually one of the big issues in the Quran. And I actually use this because it's a very good example for people to understand that there's a big problem with the Quran, and it's very clear what the problem is. And usually people will come up with some silly excuse of like, oh, the Quran is just saying that all matter was joined. And then I would just say, like, if that's the case, couldn't the Quran just say the heavens and Abdullah Samir was joined, or the heavens and your laptop computer was joined, or the heavens and the Nile River were joined? None of those things existed at the time of the creation of the universe. So how can you say that the heavens and earth was joined when the earth never existed, right? That's my argument. And to make it worse, most of the things in most of the ancient cultures used to believe the exact same thing. Even cultures that were not inspired by God, like the Greeks, the Maya of India, the Romans, It just, it goes on and on. Culture after culture used to believe that the heavens and earth were joined and it was split. Max is asking, will Islam ever collapse as a whole? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't think so. Like, I don't know. Like, I think religion is here to stay for a long time. We have a long way to go. Scientific literacy is still not there in most parts of the world, and the superstition still rules most parts of the world. Superstition still rules the world. So I don't think religion's here for a long time, not just Islam, but Christianity and everything else, right? Okay, Saqib is saying, do you think Muslims should embrace the universalist and less literal tendencies within Sufism? Why is Sufism so lacking in the battle against Salafi literalism? Part of the reason why Sufism is losing against Salafism is, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is Salafism is well funded. Wahhabism slash Salafism, which is coming from Saudi Arabia, is well funded. A lot of oil money, a lot of madrasas, a lot of Islamic schools, a lot of mosques all over the world. In Canada, when I visited Kenya, I saw a beautiful mosque. Didn't look like the other mosques in Kenya. It was beautiful. It was paid for by Saudi Arabia. So they're exporting the doctrine all over the world. The oil money is going to run out, but for now, it's still there. Sufis don't have that type of money to combat that, and the type of resources to combat that. University of Medina accepts students free of charge from anywhere in the world for a 4-year program. Many of the teachers of Al-Maghrib and Al-Kauthar, they went to Medina free of charge, no fees. And guess what they're going to teach when they come back? They're going to teach Salafism. Now some of these people are like movers and thinkers, like Muhammad al-Sharif of Al-Maghrib, who founded Al-Maghrib Institute. And Salafism is having a revival here in Canada. That's one thing. The second thing is, honestly speaking, I think Salafism is closer to the authentic, original teachings of Muhammad. It's also uglier because it's, they don't really care about how things sound in today's world. But truly speaking, Salafism is closer to the text, and that hasn't appealed to many people, right? It hasn't appealed to people that like black and white thinking. It hasn't appealed to people that want to follow what the Prophet himself taught. And I think the texts themselves tend to lead towards literal Salafism. I could be wrong. I know there was a more moderate Islam that was all over the world at one point, and Salafism has kind of squashed that. And I hope that more like Sufism and more tolerant versions of Islam. I mean, the Islam of Salafism is Islam that you can't say happy birthday, you can't celebrate your birthdays, you can't say Merry Christmas. Like, all that stuff is considered haram, and it's apostates should be killed according to most Salafis. Whereas Sufis, they don't tend to say that. Hamza Yusuf said, I don't think we should even implement hudud laws like stoning and all that stuff. So that's basically Salafism versus Sufism. Sufism is much better, in my opinion. Islam is going to be severely undermined because of YouTube. Well, not necessarily YouTube. YouTube is censoring people. It just yesterday or today, a video of the masked Arab was taken down. Facebook also tends to do that as well, and it actually shut down the Atheist Republic page for some period of time. So I think ex-Muslims and atheists need to be careful of how they say things so they don't get censored, and they need to mirror the content on their own channels, right? So I'm trying to figure out a plan as well. I might upload all of my videos onto my blog so people can download them, but I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. Okay. So where is everybody from in the chat right now? Some people, it seems like they're in India and they're just waking up. Some people are in Canada and they're going to bed. East Coast, West Coast. Oh, okay. Saqib is asking. He said he agrees with my answer for the most part. And did I go to a Salafi burnout stage before I apostated? I think Sufis like to say that. That I was too religious and I was too strict and I was following Islam too much, and that therefore I burned out. I don't think so. Like, I would have continued following as well as I could have. If I was burned out, I would have maybe given up some of the stuff in Islam and did what I could right? And for example, like in the beginning, I didn't let my kids watch any TV, but eventually I'm like, yeah, okay, you guys can watch TV, and I was a little bit more liberal about music than I used to be and stuff like that. And so, slowly I was kind of a little bit liberal on some things. I don't think personally I was burned out. Maybe psychologically I was, um, from trying to be a strict Muslim and all that. But truly speaking, the issues that affected me was the Quran, the science in the Quran, in the sense of the Quran not reflecting reality. Chapter 21, verse 30 is a perfect example of the heavens and earth being joined. Heavens and earth were never joined. Like these scientific points, the science behind the creation of the universe, as my scientific literacy was growing, I started to see more and more problems with the Quran. I started to see that it was written by a man, not written by God Almighty. So this is what made me leave Islam eventually. It was a belief, and it was the points in the religion itself that couldn't withstand the light of science and reason, basically, right? Masked Arab videos are still in YouTube, yes, but if you see his Twitter, one of his videos, I think the one about homosexuality and ISIS, was taken down, and hopefully it'll come back up. Hopefully. Was Muhammad the most pragmatic person in history? He had no army, he preached peace. When he got an army, he said to fight every disbeliever. It's pretty funny. What does it even mean for heaven to join with earth? That's a good question. Basically, it means that they used to believe that, just imagine looking up in the world and you see this dome. It almost seems like there's a physical dome, and as the Bible calls it the firmament. And the Bible actually said like there's a water above the sky and there's a water below. Like the Bible tries to explain this in a way that someone back then would have explained it without understanding about the water cycle, without understanding that there's no water in the sky, right? And the earth is just a ball floating in space. But back then they used to think like, heavens and earth were joined, and then, the heaven was raised up. That's why the Quran keeps saying that the heaven was raised up. So ancient cultures all used to have this common idea of heaven being pushed up. Heaven means the sky. And so this is basically what we find in the Quran, this is what we find in the Bible, this is what we find in basically every ancient belief used to believe the same thing, that the heavens was pushed up, the heavens was joined, heavens and earth was joined and was split. This is what every culture used to believe back then, right? Or maybe not every single culture. Some cultures were getting scientifically literate even before Muhammad's time, but that information hadn't come to Muhammad, right? My God, Yeshua is still going on about the 666 and the Greek Allah in 666 and conspiracy theories. Okay. Will I remain atheist my whole life? I don't know. I am someone that follows evidence, I believe. I consider myself a truth seeker. So if the evidence is for belief in God, I'll believe in God. Personally, if I had to choose, I would have to choose between deism and atheism. Atheism is there's no God. Deism is there's some sort of creator, similar to what Einstein believed, similar to what Michio Kaku believes, that famous physicist of today's time, or Spinoza, one of the philosophers. So deism is basically belief that there is a God, but God never communicated with us, interacted with us, did anything with us. There's also other theories that we're inside a simulation, like Matrix style, like a brain is connected to a vat, something like that. We're inside a computer program, we're all computer signals. Who knows? We can't know. We're inside the system, we're inside a closed system. We can't get outside it, so we don't know exactly what's going on. I'm personally atheist. I believe in materialism. So basically, this world is all that exists, and when you die, that's the end of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but if the evidence leads me to believe something else, I'll believe that as time goes by. Okay. What's my opinion on Muhammad Aisha and the rest of his brides? I believe he married the most beautiful girls he could find whenever they were offered to him. Even like Safiya and like Aisha and like Zainab. These are all beautiful young girls, right? Let me find a page that actually describes it. Okay, here we go. So there's a page on Wiki Islam called Age of Muhammad's Wives, and it kind of analyzes the different wives and how old they possibly were, and how old they were when they got married. So like for example, Zainab was 35, Juwairiya was 20. There's some other ones as well. Hind, which Salama, who was probably about 28. Some of these you have to guess because we don't know for sure, right? And then Safiya was 17, going to Tabari. Maymuna was, where is she? So where does it say? Maymuna was probably about 35. So all of his wives, except for Khadija, who was before Islam, seem to be married in the 20s, in the teens, 20s or 30s. Not old women, right? Like, yes, he didn't marry virgin women, but like, what's the big deal about virgin women, anyways? Other than Aisha, right? Like whether they slept with someone before, if they were beautiful and attractive, I mean, that's what he wanted, right? Did he divorce a wife because of leprosy? I'm not sure about that story. I haven't heard it. Okay, so I'm gonna get going, and 5 minutes left, and I'm gonna shut down. So let's see, any last questions? I'm just going through the comments now. Okay. What do I think about my friend Farhan Qureshi, who started practicing Hinduism? He's a cool guy. I think we have many similar beliefs, in a sense. He jumped into spirituality and believing that there's some sort of ulterior reality other than materialism, whereas I came to the conclusion, kind of like, funny thing is we both listen to the same guys too. He also listens to Sam Harris and some of the same guys, but he actually believes there's an ulterior reality to this world, like pantheism, basically, God, there's some sort of God or power or some force or something. I kind of dropped that ball and just believe there's no God. So that's what I believe. Yeah. It's a death penalty for saying the prophet was black. Oh, never heard of that before. Why is the sky blue? Philosophy Cafe is asking. Okay. More change. Can you last 9 women in one night? The thing is, this is probably just made up, that story. Like, people become legends after they die. So that's that's what happens to people after they die. They become like legends. They don't while they're alive they're not legends, but after they die they become like superheroes. And that the video I posted earlier about evolution of Jesus in the Bible talks about how he became a legend. So yeah, I like Farhan Qureshi. He's a cool guy. Hope to have another discussion with him. We disagree on that, but yeah, Mo Change is saying he married a fat girl. You're talking about Sauda. That was his second wife after Khadija died, right? Before he married, was it before he married Aisha? So Sauda is the big wife you're talking about. Yeah, I'm leaving because it's like really late at night now. And I didn't realize ended up making this a lot longer than I thought. It's 2.5 hours now, and my throat is dry, and I need to go to bed. I have to go to work in the morning. Did I used to take a few days off from work and go with a group for dawah? I went with the Tabligh Jamaat once, but being Salafi, I used to think there was all bid'ah and like innovation and shirk and all that nonsense. So I didn't go with Tabligh Jamaat. I did go with them once just for the experience, just to see what it's like to stay in the mosque with those guys. I didn't like it. It was weird. But no, I never went for any of those dawah things, dawah camps. I wasn't doing like dawah formally. I was more like doing online dawah, like making Islamic websites and stuff, right? That's what I was doing, right? My core belief, what makes me atheist? It's because I don't believe there's enough evidence for God. That's why I'm atheist. If there's evidence I found that God did exist, then I would believe in God. But like I said, there's only two real options to me: deism or atheism. I'm 100% sure that God never communicated to us if there's a God. So whether deism is true or atheism is true, you can make a choice. I personally think atheism, and it's just like, I don't believe in tooth fairies or unicorns or any of that stuff either, because there's no evidence for them, right? So if someone wants to believe in that, they need to bring the evidence, need to bring the proof, right? So until there's evidence for belief in some, as there's a concept called Russell's teapot. You can believe there's a teapot circling the moon, but it's on the person making the claim to justify it. So I don't believe there's any God because I haven't seen good evidence for God. If there is a God and he communicates to us or he somehow lets us know, then I'll be willing to believe in him, right? How many % sure am I that Islam is false? I'm 100% sure that Islam is false because there's 100 different reasons why I don't believe in Islam. And just go to my blog, you'll see so much, so many points. I just can't believe in it. There's no way I can believe in it. Just too many reasons. There's too many reasons. And you just look at my top posts and you'll understand. Do I think religion is necessary for humanity? I think religion was necessary for humanity, which is why it survived. But I'm hoping we don't need it anymore because it has a lot of baggage, emotional baggage, like a girlfriend that has had issues that you're with in the past. She brings it into the relationship, right? Some of you guys might understand that, and she brings that baggage, and that's what religion does. It brings baggage into your life that you don't need. There's some good things, but there's also a lot of bad things. It brings baggage, right? So we want to get rid of that baggage now, and that's why I think secular humanism is the best. We don't need any religion for that. And yeah, what's my take on agnostic Muslim group started by Hassan Radwan? Is it possible to have an Islam for those that accept the texts are fallible but still believe in God? Saqib, Hassan Radwan is one of my, I don't know, I want to say role models or something. He really helped me, and his videos were actually instrumental in me leaving Islam. His response to the linguistic miracle of the Quran, among other things. And he used to call himself ex-Muslim, but then he stopped doing that because he wanted to support the Muslim community, and he decided to call himself Muslim again. And he believes in God, and unlike me, he believes in God. He has a different opinion. His conclusions are completely different than mine, but he doesn't believe in the literal word of God sent to Muhammad as a Quran. He's what you would call a cultural Muslim maybe, and he wants to help the Muslim community against bigotry, so he's Muslim from that perspective. But he also wants Muslims to accept that you don't have to believe in Quran as a word of God and still be Muslim. So a lot of Muslims have a lot of hatred for him and antagonism and anger because he still calls himself Muslim. But I mean, that's his choice if he wants to call himself Muslim, and it's not what typically people would consider Muslim. But he's a non-orthodox, he's a heterodox Muslim in a sense, and he falls on one kind of extreme of someone that doesn't hold the tenets of Islam but still believes in Islam. So I respect him very much so, and his group, Agnostic Muslim group, I joined it. I have a lot of good friends in that group. Most of my best friends, online best friends, were deep thinkers. They're not people that are antagonistic and hateful and full of hate against Islam. They're more rational people that think about it, some of them believe in God, some of them don't. A lot of them are atheists, but they're not hostile. And I actually get along very well with those guys, and I fit in very well in that group, Agnostic Muslims group. So it's a closed group. You'd have to apply to join, but if you do join, then yeah, it's a fantastic group. How does atheists describe the creation? Good question. I have a video on this as well. You can look up, but basically, in a nutshell, atheists, at least me, or what I've learned from my studying of physics and metaphysics and stuff, is that the universe, not the current instance of the universe, but let's call it the cosmos, whatever exists outside of the universe, always existed. So there's a quantum form where particles pop in and out of existence, and we know this because we see particles popping in and out of existence from nothing. So where do they come from? So we call this what they come from, the quantum form. So I believe that our universe also popped into existence from this quantum form that maybe existed forever, or maybe there was a cycle of universes. So Big Bang, and then Big Crunch, Big Bang, Big Crunch. Infinite cycle of of big bangs and big crunches. Right now, that's not the preferred model, according to science, of big crunch, and it seems like the universe is just going to keep expanding and just going to like freeze to death, basically, something like that. But I'm not sure what exactly the best scientific model is going to be. But I do believe that we can explain how the universe always existed without a God. Just like Muslims or theists will say, well, God always existed. I would say the universe always existed. I don't even need to go to the one more step and say God always existed, it created the universe. No, the universe just always existed. That's it. And that's a good enough explanation for me. The same way that you can stop and say that God always existed, I stop and say the universe always existed. Oh, I watched The Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I loved it. It was a fantastic documentary. It also helped me open my eyes, and it doesn't attack religion directly, but it actually describes a lot of things that are in the religion that actually very much helped me. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Cosmos documentary, fantastic. The universe, if you're asking where the universe came from, like if you mean the multiverse or the cosmos, I would say the universe always existed. It didn't come from anything. It's the same answer that you would give to God. Where did God come from? He always existed. And what's easier to believe in? A God that's infinitely intelligent and perfect and this and that has some sort of, personality that always existed, or just a universe that always existed, right? And there could be multiple universes, right? Like, and some of them have life, others has life, some may not have life. So here we are in a universe and we're like, wow, this is so cool. Where did we come from? Oh, God must have done it. Well, maybe we just happened by coincidence, and we just happen to exist, right? No problem, Sakib. I wish you well. Wish you well, my friend. Cosmos is fantastic. I absolutely love it. Okay. Why do people need religion? I think it helped, like I said, helped us to explain things. A big part of religion is needed for people to give them, what's the word I'm looking for? Ritual in their life, like what to do when people die, what to do when someone's born, what to do when you get married, how do you get married. These rituals are important in lives of humans. So the whole confession thing about, Catholics have this confession thing, and these things had some value for humanity. But the problem I have is the baggage, right? The baggage the religion comes from. So yes, I do think that religion has some good parts, but I think it has some bad parts as well. Pale Moon says quantum physics proves that something can come from nothing. Exactly. Whether you call that quantum form nothing or whether you call it something, it depends on your definition. But yeah, basically it's nothing. It's probability field. That's what it's described as. If I can just recommend a few books before I go that actually helped me. Okay. So here's my library of books. And I really enjoyed, so Reality is Not What It Seems, The Journey to Quantum Gravity. That's a great book. Power of Now, this is all about mindfulness. Full Catastrophe Living, this is a science-based book on mindfulness. Ethics on the Real World, this is an ethics book on basically utilitarianism, so that's one perspective. This book, Exploring Metaphysics, is a fantastic book on basically a lot of the things I was just describing. It's actually a course, it's not a book. Cosmos is the original by Carl Sagan. I haven't finished listening to that. The Spiritual Brain, Science and Religious Experience. This book was also helpful to me to kind of understand why people get religious and some of the religious experiences they have. Excuse me. The Greatest Story Ever Told So Far is by Lawrence Krauss. It goes through the history of science discoveries, especially about particle physics. The Way of Strangers, Encounters with the Islamic State, was a fantastic, enjoyable book on jihad, on ISIS, on extremism, and how he met all these ISIS recruiters and how he talked to them and what he learned from them. This book is all about some of the issues happening in Europe right now with Muslims and quest for meaning. Like I told you, this is all about ethics, and he goes through different philosophers, David Hume, Kant, Immanuel Kant, and a bunch of them. So these are some of the books that I enjoyed and really helped me. One second, I think there was another one. Oh yeah, there's some more as well. One more book I want to share is called Atheism Explained, and he basically goes to. Hold on, I'll find the book for you guys. Atheism Explained. Atheism Explained is another fantastic book by David Ramsay Steele, and he goes through all of the arguments for God one by one. And honestly, it's an outstanding book, one of the best books I've read on atheism. Fantastic book, absolutely recommended. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for joining. It was wonderful. I'm glad I spent my The Way of Strangers was written by Graham Wood. He's a journalist, investigative journalist, and he's studied ISIS for a long time now, and he met a bunch of recruiters. Absolutely enjoyable book. But like I was saying, I'm not going to answer any more questions. It's time to go to bed. But I just want to say thank you guys and everyone for joining me, guys and girls. I don't mean guys only, but I just mean in general. Thank you everyone. It was fantastic and it was a good talk. Went on for a long time, and I hope to do it again. This type of chat is cool because you can actually interact with people and you can answer questions. And I wish I could do like live call in, kind of like Majid Nawaz, or like the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty. I would absolutely love to hear from people like calling in, not just commenting, so I can give them more of a platform, not just me talking. It's also nice to get a break from talking if I can get someone else to talk for a bit. I probably will go on the Gin and Tonic show this Friday again. I'm not sure if I have time, depends on my work schedule. But yes, Arif, it will be uploaded on YouTube. I think as soon as I'm done recording, it'll start uploading it. I'm going to upload an MP3 version as well for those who want to listen to audio. I'm trying to set up a podcast so that you can just subscribe to the podcast and get the videos and audios there. As you know, YouTube is not reliable sometimes, and they'll block your content. I don't think my content will get blocked because I'm pretty respectful for the most part, and I don't piss off people like some of the other channels. But you never know, things can change overnight, right? So again, like I want to mention, none of my videos are monetized. I don't have any ads on my website. Everything is free of charge. I don't gain any benefit. In fact, I just ordered a whole bunch of stuff. A new webcam to make this better. I got a new video card to make the stream fast. The last stream was choppy instead of failing. I got a new light bulb to get the light up because someone complained in the last video that my old-fashioned light bulb wasn't doing it. So there's a lot of stuff you learn, right? So I got this bad boy, 100 watts, right? So a lot of stuff you learn when you do these live streams, and you get better and better. So I hope to continue doing it. The reason I mentioned that is I don't charge any money because I don't want to gain. I have no personal gain in this, other than getting the message out. So please share these videos, this content with other people. The only thing I want is for people to see that Islam is not true, because why waste your life on it if it's not true, right? Truth is what matters. And yes, we have a lot of sentimental feelings towards it because we grew up in this religion, and you don't have to necessarily leave it, right? You can just, as long as you know it's not true, at least the decisions you make in your life won't be based on an imaginary benefit that you won't gain, right? Like you may put off buying a house, or you may put off, going, dating, for example, some girl that you like, or a guy that you like, or whatever. Or maybe you're homosexual, you're gay, and you feel guilty about it. You don't need to feel guilty about it. This is just the way you are. And Islam teaches you that you're bad and you're broken, and no, you don't need to feel that way. It's not right to feel that way. You have no reason to feel guilty or shameful for that. And honestly speaking, this life is a life that we have. Let's continue to spread goodness, reason, enlightenment, and let's say skepticism as well, because this is what keeps us safe from bad ideas. And I wish everybody well. Yes, please do check out Hassan Radwan. He's on Facebook. Just follow him on Facebook. He has a group as well called Muslims for Secular Democracy. I'll post the link for the group in the chat. That's his group now. He's moved on from the Agnostic Muslims group, but he has this group, and that's where you'll get most of his posts. And as well, you can just follow him directly on Facebook. He's honestly a like-minded individual. I look up to him very much so. and he was a teacher of Islam. He's fluent in Arabic, and he was brave. He found out Islam was false and he left it, and that's what we need. We need more people to be brave. Um, and like I said, please do share my videos, and I wish you all well. And to whoever said Assalamu alaikum, welcome salam to you. Take care, everyone. Good night.